explosions from the direction of the bunker had become sparse. The assault teams led by Bloodshark and Ghost Crocodile had clearly gained control of the situation. Zavina quietly stood by his side, her steel blue eyes scanning the seemingly calm ruins with vigilance. Suddenly, Chief 34, the fat pirate in the co-pilot seat, yelled, "There's a situation." What? Almost simultaneously, Zavina's right hand was already resting on her pulse pistol at her waist, as dozens of dark red lights suddenly flashed outside the window. Missiles. Boom. A deafening explosion erupted just 5 meters in front of the command vehicle. The heavy armored vehicle ahead was lifted off the ground, and the searing shockwave hit, causing the command vehicle to shake backward. Lu Ling was violently thrown against his seat by the immense inertia, but thankfully Zavina reacted quickly, reaching out to support him. Enemy attack. The skinny pirate in the driver's seat desperately tried to correct the vehicle's posture, but strong interference had rendered the control system inoperative. Zavina's movements were as quick as lightning. She swiftly unbuckled the seatbelt, grabbed Lu Ling by the collar with her left hand, and shattered the deformed car door lock with her right hand's pulse pistol. With a low shout, she rolled out with Lu Ling through the overturned door. By the dim light of the fire, Lu Ling saw a dense swarm of figures rushing towards them. The guards of the convoy were already engaged in intense gunfire with a group of unknown assailants. Lu Ling quickly took out the control chip to recall the drone. He had just designed a remote control program and didn't expect to use it so soon. Gunfire erupted everywhere, with pulse shots ringing out. At least hundreds of people were encircling them. Zavina pulled Lu Ling into cover, followed closely by the two pirates. "Is it the main force?" Someone shouted. "The main force?" Lu Ling pondered for a moment and quickly recalled what Bloodshark had said. Only Rachel's devil fleet could be referred to as the main force. Is it Rachel? They've come so quickly. The sounds of counterattacks soon faded, revealing that there were only about 20 guards left. Heavy footsteps approached, and Lu Ling finally saw the figure walking slowly out of the smoke. This was his first time seeing Rachel. He had only heard Greenleaf mention him casually before. The man who controlled the Red Devils was nothing like Lu Ling had imagined. He wasn't the slender, sinister villain commonly seen in movies. Instead, he was a portly figure. The heavy commander's uniform wrapped around his rotund body, and the nanobelt was almost strained by his protruding belly. His small eyes were deeply embedded in the flesh, like two narrow slits, glinting with a cold light. When Lu Ling looked at him, those snake-like eyes also shifted, their gazes clashing in the air. Rachel's chubby hand picked up a Corlacei cigar and took a deep puff. This was the taste the pirates loved. "I finally found you. Are you coming for me?" Lu Ling squinted his eyes, but knowing his group was surrounded, he couldn't help but glance towards the depths of the bunker entrance. "Bloodshark, hurry up. It seemed like you still need someone to invite you." Rachel's eyes narrowed into slits, revealing a chilling smile. "Satisfy him. Go, bring our guest out." Two warriors clad in crimson exoskeleton armor immediately emerged from the shadows, moving swiftly, their armor still stained with blood, clearly having just dealt with the guards left behind. "It's the Devil Guard," the two pirates exclaimed in horror. The Devil Guard, like Feng Ling's falling goose guards, were the most loyal assassins, born for slaughter. The two Devil Guards sprinted toward the four hiding on the hill, moving so fast that they were nearly just a blur. Zavina had already drawn her pulse pistol, aiming directly at Rachel's forehead to shoot him down. The two pirates also made space to shoot at the approaching Devil Guards. However, just then, a black figure appeared in front of Rachel, and the pulse shots that hit his body only caused a slight ripple. It is an Imperial officer-level nano battle armor. The thin man, who was observing the situation, immediately spoke up. "This thing is absolutely high-end. Only the senior officials of the naval forces can wear it." Zawena frowned. Just as she was about to activate the nano battle armor at her waist, she was stopped by Lu Ling, who handed over his own belt, saying, "This set is better than yours. You can use it." His set was the one that had been used to defeat Tai Zan at the collection station base. Equipped with 2 energy cores and a customized weapon module, while Zowena's originally only had 1 core. It was sufficient for minor engagements. But now she needed to give it her all. Zowena did not refuse. She quickly leaped out from behind cover and activated the nano battle armor. In the next moment, floating nano light points enveloped her, forming a dark silver battle suit. Her speed then surged, her figure darting through the ruins like a silver lightning bolt, leaving a sharp trajectory behind. The nano battle armor glinted coldly under the false moonlight of the howling city, with eerie blue energy patterns flowing at the joints. Her speed surpassed that of the elite guards, intercepting them before they could reach her. Interesting. Rachel slowly exhaled a smoke ring. Clang. The sharp sound of metal clashing echoed. Zowena's nano leg armor violently collided with the crimson exoskeleton of the first elite guard, sending sparks flying. A muffled grunt came from beneath the guard's helmet, clearly caught off guard by the explosive power of this seemingly delicate woman. Zowena did not give her opponent a chance to breathe. Using the recoil, she performed a backflip. her right leg cleaving downward like a battle axe toward the head of the second guard. The guard hurriedly raised his hand to block it. But the exoskeleton armor emitted a strained sound as he was kicked back several meters. The strength was overwhelming, gaining the upper hand in just one encounter. Rachel finally lifted her heavy eyelids, realizing that this was the method you used to protect him, Fengling? The guard who had been knocked back quickly regained his stance and launched a counterattack. The first guard, evidently superior in genetics and skill, exchanged blows with Zawena in midair, leaving countless afterimages as they fought 10 times in just a few breaths. Yet he was still being pushed back. The sounds of metal clashing and sparks flying continued. The second elite guard suddenly accelerated, his right arm's armor transforming and firing a high-frequency vibration blade, buzzing sharply as it slashed towards Zawena's neck. Zawena deftly sidestepped the attack, the blade grazing her armor and sending up a shower of bright sparks. At the same time, she activated her weapon module, and nanoparticles rapidly coalesced into 2 power axes, their blades igniting with a blazing light. This is the end. Zawena suddenly burst forth with an almost untraceable speed, appearing behind the second elite guard, her axes accelerating as she swung them in a deadly arc. The tremendous force cut directly into the guard's neck, and with a second surge of power, it broke through the last layer of defense of his exoskeleton armor. With a splatter of blood, his body was severed in 2. Zawena did not pause for a moment, before the second guard's corpse had fully fallen to the ground. She was already charging toward the first guard like an arrow released from a bow. The elite guard member clearly noticed the plight of his companion. A beast-like roar came from beneath his helmet, and blinding arcs of electricity suddenly erupted from the joints of his exoskeleton armor, a feature of overload mode. He then unleashed a high-frequency oscillating blade and charged forward. Sparks flew as the two clashed under the false moonlight, the immense force creating visible ripples in the air. And Lu Ling only felt a chill rush past. However, even in overload, the guard couldn't sustain it for long. In the moment they brushed past each other, a faint glimmer of cold light flashed, and the tip of the battle axe in Savina's hand steamed with blood. The guard emitted a suffocating wail, his exoskeleton armor flickering with a disabling red light before crashing heavily to the ground. Only Lu Ling, witnessing this, had his eyes gleaming with excitement. This was the flow style of Ataris. Indeed, his personally trained Savina was the strongest. Under the moonlight, Savina lightly swung her battle axe, deactivating the thermal mode, and the crimson blood fell into the soil, the blade's sharpness evident. Behind Rachel, 6 more guard members emerged, not using firearms, but instead drawing close combat weapons. Lu Ling felt a weight in his heart at this scene. The person in Imperial officer armor was still watching from the sidelines. Only by dealing with him could he confront Rachel. The air fell silent for a moment, then suddenly erupted in applause. Rachel clapped his hands, looking at Savina with an appreciative tone. "Not bad. I will spare your life if you submit to me." As the 6 surrounded her, the diamond-shaped blue eye on Savina's helmet suddenly turned crimson. "Hold them." Lu Ling, not being adept at combat, quickly glanced at the control panel in his hand. It was almost time. In overload mode, Savina advanced rather than retreating, transforming into a burning silver-white meteor, her nano-armor emitting a supersonic shriek. This made Rachel's voice rise sharply. "You have guts." The 6 guards charged forward rapidly, looking for death. The leading guard growled, swinging his high-frequency oscillating blade down towards Savina's face with a tearing sound that split the air. Savina did not dodge. Her battle axe moved as fast as light. Flaw. Flaw. All flaws. A cold glint shot out, and the guard's head was already gone. During her time of genetic enhancement, she had trained daily in killing techniques, honing the combat skills taught by the Atari's Knight Academy. She had been waiting for this day. Killing enemies was like mowing grass. She intended to clear all obstacles in front of Lu Ling clang. The sound was deafening. The guard who engaged with Savina felt a numbness in his hands, and through his visor, blinding sparks and energy ripples erupted. But soon, he saw the axe blade rising from below. Instinctively wanting to block, he found his hand unresponsive. Looking down, he saw his own headless body, blood gushing. In an instant, she had already killed 2, and now 4 guards lay slain. Even with Savina's genetic strength at E, continuous high-intensity combat made her slightly out of breath. After landing a hit, Savina did not hesitate. She spun around using the recoil to fend off the 2 devil guards attacking from both sides. The ion-cutting blades barely grazed her armor, leaving behind burning marks. The nanocore quickly repaired itself, restoring her to her original state. However, there were too many enemies. 2 more devil guards emerged from the shadows to join the fight, while 3 others seized the opportunity to launch deadly attacks from the rear and flanks. The assaults from 3 directions blocked all her escape routes. Zavina. Lu Ling's eyes turned red as he activated his nano-armor and rushed out without hesitation. "Chief." The chubby and thin brothers followed closely behind, firing their pulse guns continuously. "Take her alive," Rachel ordered Dindon, and the black armored guard standing in front of him vanished in an instant. In this desperate situation, Zavina's eyes burned with a scarlet glow beneath her visor, shining brilliantly in that moment. Die! With a fierce shout, filled with the resolve to destroy everything, she completely abandoned defense, charging forward like a burning silver dragon. Just as the ion blade was about to hit her, she suddenly spun around, narrowly avoiding a deadly strike aimed at her back. At the same time, using the momentum from her spin, she swung her twin axes down with the force of a mountain splitting apart, aiming at the guard charging straight at her. Clang! The guard clearly did not expect Zavina to counterattack so fiercely in such a dire situation. He instinctively raised his arm to block, but her axes sliced through his arm's armor, the overwhelming force unstoppable, while the other axe crashed into the junction of his shoulder and neck. The sound was like a sharp knife piercing through cardboard. Blood gushed forth, and he didn't even have time to scream before half of his shoulder and arm were severed. The tremendous impact sent him flying into a pile of discarded containers, crashing down with a heavy thud, and then he fell silent. However, Zavina also paid a price. Just as she executed her spinning attack, 2 of the 3 oscillating cutting blades had already shattered the stability of her nano-links, causing her nano-armor to begin to crack, and the filling nanomaterial could not complete the repairs. Oscillating weapons were the nemesis of nanotype armor. A suppressed groan of pain escaped her clenched teeth, as blood instantly stained her silver-white armor, flowing down her leg armor, looking particularly striking under the false moonlight. Lu Ling had already joined the battle, drawing 2 twin blades to attack one of the guards. Although he had practiced the Astra's fighting technique, any fighting style required years of training, and he was just a beginner. Nonetheless, his genetic strength was evidently higher than that of the guard. Ding! Lu Ling held his twin blades in front of him, his eyes fixed on the opponent's movements, accurately blocking the incoming oscillating blade. The collision of forces made his arms slightly numb, but he gritted his teeth and held on, quickly closing the distance. Clumsy! The mocking voice of the devil guard came through his helmet as he continuously dodged Lu Ling's attacks, occasionally blocking. Clang! 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 The 2 individuals exchanged blows in a turn-based manner. However, in the next moment, a silver-white figure resembling a ghost suddenly rushed in. Then, a cold glint flashed by, and the person who had just mocked Lu Ling had their heads separated in an instant. The remaining individual clutched their injured arm, startled and angry, momentarily too afraid to advance. This is outrageous, clearly showing an instinctive fear of the silver figure. Run! Lu Ling decisively grabbed Zawina and prepared to flee. Thinking of escaping? The cold electronic voice rang out just as the armored guard blocked their retreat, an overwhelming sense of pressure descending upon them. Without hesitation, Zawina, with no trace of fear in her steel blue eyes, brandished her dual axes and transformed them into 2 silver streaks, launching a fierce attack. Child's play. The armored guard snorted coldly, standing firm and not dodging. His iron fist, covered in dark nano-armor, suddenly struck out, the force tearing through the air with a deafening sonic boom, crashing hard against the 2 silver streaks. Clang! The resounding clash of metal erupted, visible waves of power spreading out, turning the rubble on the ground into dust. Zawina trembled, feeling an unresistible force travel through the axe handles, causing her to lose grip and the axes to fly into the air, landing several meters away. The armored guard closed in like a shadow, and after exchanging blows for several rounds, delivered a brutal knee strike straight to Zawina's jaw. Zawina could only cross her arms to block. Bang! A dull thud sounded as her silver figure was sent tumbling through the air, ultimately landing in front of Lu Ling, hands on the ground, a single knee supporting her weakened form. This opponent is stronger than Zawina. It must be due to that set of armor. Zawina. Lu Ling felt a surge of rage and concern, quickly moving to help her up, his gaze fixed on the armored figure. He still had a life-saving trump card, and just enough resources to use it. However, doing so would undoubtedly disrupt his carefully orchestrated plan, but of course, his life was more important. Just then, at this critical moment, a buzzing sound, dense like a swarm of locusts, suddenly emanated from deep within the bunker. Initially faint, it soon surged like a tide, quickly enveloping the entire battlefield. The sharp, piercing sound resembled countless metal wings vibrating at an extremely high frequency, sending chills down their spines. Lu Ling couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. His drone swarm had finally arrived. What is that sound? Rachel's chubby face frowned, a flicker of confusion passing through her small eyes. In the next moment, under countless astonished gazes, a dark cloud suddenly surged out from the deep entrance of the bunker. It was a torrent composed of numerous drones. They surged forth like a swarm of awakened killers, densely packed and overwhelming, instantly blocking out much of the light above the ruins. Without a moment's pause, as these drones burst from the bunker, their modified elite AI had already locked onto all hostile targets, with Rachel and the armored guard being the top priorities. In the next moment, Countless blinding pulse beams descended like a torrential storm. The scene was terrifying. The blue pulse rays wove into a deadly net, precise, cold, and ruthless. They ignored distance, ignored cover, as if they had eyes, shooting towards their targets from various tricky angles. Protect the leader. The black-armored guard reacted swiftly, darting in front of Rachel. Crossing his arms, the deep, dark glow of the nano-armor formed an energy shield, shielding Rachel's bulky body behind him. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The sound of impacts rained down like heavy rain on banana leaves. Countless pulse beams struck the energy shield, creating dazzling ripples of energy. The shield flickered violently. Although it wasn't instantly breached, the continuous massive force pushed the black-armored guard back, leaving deep footprints in the ground with each step. There were too many. Far too many to despair. The drones attacked tirelessly, endlessly, with no end in sight. The Devil Guards were even more panicked. They didn't have the top-tier nano-armor of the Empire for protection. The drones' attacks were cunning, specifically targeting the weak points of the armor's seams. One guard had just raised his weapon when several beams simultaneously hit his arm and head, blowing his helmet and head apart in an instant. No. Another tried to find cover, but was pierced through the shoulder armor by a pulse beam coming straight down, half of his body blown to pieces. Ah, my arm. Be careful. Defend. Prepare EMP. But the Devil Guards were seasoned veterans. Under their captain's hoarse shouts, the remaining members quickly gathered to form a defensive circle. Throw. In the next moment, dozens of EMP grenades, flashing with dangerous blue light, were hurled into the air, tracing arcs. Buzz. The azure electromagnetic pulse waves instantly spread in the air like ripples, forming a spherical electromagnetic interference field. This was an excellent weapon against drones. However, what happened next plunged the hearts of all the Devil Guards into despair, their eyes filled with disbelief. The once densely attacking swarm of drones, at the very moment before the EMP explosion, seemed to possess true life and predictive capability. They scattered with astonishing agility and precision, evading the pulse range. All the EMP shockwaves ended up hitting nothing. How is that possible? The Devil Guard captain exclaimed in disbelief, his voice absurd. Lu Ling breathed a sigh of relief. Seizing the opportunity to retreat with Zavina, while issuing an aggressive order to the drone swarm to automatically attack all enemies within range and pursue until they were eliminated. Interesting. It seems the intel was correct. Feng Ling indeed found an extraordinary talent. Rachel watched everything coldly, a sinister smile curling at the corners of her mouth as she pressed a button on her wristband with her plump thumb. Chapter 58. Night Duel. No matter how good the toy is, in the face of true power, it is merely a pile of scrap metal. Rachel's movements carried a mocking playfulness reminiscent of a cat toying with a mouse, exuding a calm control over everything. As he pressed down with his fingertip, a strange dark red pattern suddenly illuminated on the wristband. The low hum did not emanate from the ground or the overwhelming swarm of drones. Instead, it was a deeper, more violent sound, a pure engine roar that instantly drowned out all the chaos on the battlefield. Then, an indescribable, terrifying explosion shattered the sky, as if an invisible giant hand had violently torn the heavens apart. Lu Ling abruptly looked up, and not far away, Sawina and the two brothers, along with Bloodshark and Ghost Crocodile, who had just rushed out of the bunker, gazed skyward. Above Howling City, a false moon radiating cold neon light twisted, and a massive shadow brutally tore through this illusory projection, ripping apart the thick, murky clouds, and descended ferociously. The world plunged into darkness. The shadow was so enormous it took one's breath away. It displayed a deep, dark red, steeped in countless blood and warfare. And its cold metal armor was covered in battle scars. Every inch of its lines exuded a violent beauty born purely for destruction. Towering over 20 meters, its humanoid steel body radiated a terrifying pressure akin to that of a colossal metal beast. At that moment, the massive thruster array on its back unleashed a blue-white ion flame stretching dozens of meters, roaring like a dragon's breath, scorching the air and producing a deafening thunderous sound. The violent shockwave spread out like a tangible tsunami, whipping up the debris on the ground and sending it flying. It was the Iron Rider. Lu Ling's pupils constricted, and the thin man gasped in horror. Boom! Accompanied by a terrifying roar capable of shattering eardrums and shaking the earth, the Iron Rider's steel legs, resembling towering columns, crashed heavily onto the ground with immense force. Like stars falling from the sky, at the point of impact, the ground within 100 meters shattered like fragile glass, collapsing. The terrifying shockwave mixed with dirt, metal fragments, and chaotic energy surged outward in a ring, sweeping everything away. Dust and smoke billowed into the sky. Sawina grabbed Lu Ling and ducked into cover, while the thin man struggled to push the heavier one along. The entire battlefield fell into a dead silence. Only the residual ion flames from the Iron Rider's thrusters continued to emit a low hum, accompanied by the hissing of cooling armor. Run. Spread out and run. Survive. After Bloodshark shouted, he hurriedly fled. The black armored guards also retreated with their devilish troops, clearly experienced in dealing with the Iron Rider. Ants. Rachel sneered disdainfully, yet his hefty body moved with incredible agility, swiftly diving into the swirling dust. The Iron Rider's cockpit opened, dropping a rope, and Rachel grabbed it and climbed inside. Then, the machinery trembled, and the massive body of the Iron Rider slowly stood up, its single-eye sensor array on the head suddenly lighting up. The crimson light pierced through the dust, cold and brutal. Let you know what true despair is. The giant single red eye of the crimson-black Iron Rider suddenly flared up, and a super-pulse electromagnetic tube emerged from its back, humming as it rose steadily. The sound of accumulated energy exploded, creating a violent azure electromagnetic pulse centered around it. In that instant, all drones had nowhere to escape, and hundreds of thousands of drones fell to the ground without even a chance to struggle in the face of such overwhelming power. Just a single strike. The drone swarm, modified with the EVE Elite Artificial Intelligence program by Lu Ling, was declared annihilated. However, Lu Ling had anticipated this outcome, as it was merely a casual local compatibility experiment, and even a fraction of the elite AI chip's potential had not been unleashed. He just didn't expect the method to be so brutal and direct. Haha. Did you see that? Real power. In the cockpit, Rachel laughed heartily, pulling out a Corlacei cigar and taking a deep puff. Subsequently, she maneuvered the massive body of the Iron Rider, its crimson single eye coldly scanning the crowd below, who were as insignificant as ants, Bloodshark, Ghost Crocodile, the Fat and Thin brothers, and the most important targets, Lu Ling and Saivina. Two 70mm meteor heavy cannons popped out from the shoulders of Rachel's Iron Rider. As the name suggests, this close-range weapon was born for slaughter. Boom, boom, boom. The projectiles fell like meteors, raising towering flames that shredded the armed vehicles. However, Lu Ling and the others, in their frantic rush, felt no heat, only an endless chill. This was Lu Ling's first face-to-face encounter with the Iron Rider, racing against death. Several slower elite soldiers were directly evaporated in the flames, along with their exoskeleton armor. Only nano armor could withstand such high temperatures, but it wouldn't last long, as energy was rapidly depleting. Boom. Contrary to expectations of heaviness, this giant humanoid killing machine was incredibly agile, soaring into the air to begin indiscriminate bombardment. Then hovering above the crowd, its dark mouth aimed directly at Lu Ling's stop. Don't struggle in vain. I won't kill you. Rachel's voice resonated through the loudspeaker, instilling fear. However, Lu Ling was not one to surrender easily. Without wasting words, he dashed in a different direction with Saivina, heading towards Rachel's black armored guards and a large number of devil troops. Overestimating yourself, blocking him, Rachel's cold and disdainful voice echoed through the Iron Rider's loudspeaker. The elite soldiers did fight back. Facing the whistling missiles, the Iron Rider's massive steel arm simply waved casually, the explosions booming but causing no substantial damage. This ultimate human weapon, crafted from super titanium alloy heat-resistant armor, had long become immune to ordinary weapons within the atmosphere. Only large-caliber impact cannons and railguns could inflict damage. A mere missile was hardly even a tickle. Damn it, so tough. Bloodshark's face turned grim as he piloted the vehicle, narrowly dodging a meteor missile. But the shockwave still lifted the heavy armored vehicle, weighing 6 tons, into the air. Upon seeing this, the figure cursed under his breath, deciding to abandon the firepower suppression and instead led the powered armor squad to clear a path. He raised the massive siege rifle in his hands and fired wildly. The thick hypersonic projectiles easily tore through exoskeleton armor, forcing the blocking guards to retreat. The pirates without nano armor quickly fell behind, as the violent shockwave sent one of them flying several meters, crashing to the ground and rolling uncontrollably. Skinny, the larger pirate shouted, scrambling over to shake him vigorously. The skinny one coughed violently and took a deep breath, waking up. I've told you to eat more. Run. Boom, boom, boom. Huge fireballs shot into the sky, and the scorching airflow formed a deadly wall of flames, instantly sealing off all possible escape routes for Lu Ling and Zavina. The intense heat swept over them, causing the ground beneath their feet to melt and turn black. Lu Ling and Zavina were forced to stop, the searing waves of heat crashing against them, triggering alarms in their nano armor, pushing them into a desperate situation. Behind them was the relentless pursuit of the guards, in front was an inferno, and above them loomed a steel behemoth radiating a sense of destruction. Run. Why aren't you running? Rachel's mocking voice rang out as the thrusters flared. The massive figure of the iron steed hovered in midair. Surrender quietly, or I can't guarantee that your little beauty beside you one turn into charcoal. Rachel had already noticed that no matter where the young man ran, he was always accompanied by that fierce female guard, indicating a close relationship. Although that guard was indeed formidable in battle, to Rachel, they were merely pink skeletons. If this could force the young man to surrender, it would be even better. Sensing Rachel's threat and malice, Zavina was about to make a move, but was stopped by Lu Ling. Zavina, you go. Don't look back. P.S. after me. No. The stubborn refusal came from the communicator, leaving Lu Ling speechless. The once docile little cat had transformed into a lioness, her tone chillingly calm. Trust me. Feng Ling isn't that foolish. She is deliberately using me to lure Rachel out. Lu Ling's voice was decisive, carrying an undeniable finality. Just as his words fell, a high-pitched engine roar approached from afar. Buzz. Above everyone's heads, the dark red sky illuminated by smoke and fire. A massive shadow came crashing through the false clouds of Howling City, descending onto the battlefield. Unlike Rachel's black and red iron steed, this newly appeared mechanized steed was entirely a non-reflective black, devoid of any shine or unnecessary patterns, embodying the most primitive and purest form of black. Its armor lines were also filled with a sense of power, yet it was heavier and more angular than Rachel's vehicle. While it stood about 18 meters tall, a massive array of thrusters at the back expelled streams of blue and white plasma. Two deep red beams of light burst forth from the eyes of this black steed, not resembling Rachel's single eye. Upon reaching the battlefield, the pitch-black war machine descended without any flashy hovering or unnecessary gestures, crashing down with an overwhelming force into the sea of flames before Lu Ling and Zavina like a falling star. Get down. Zavina pushed Lu Ling to the ground. Immediately, a massive shockwave swept through like a tsunami, causing the earth to groan and revealing the skeletal remains of a gigantic space station. The closest members of the Devil's Guard did not even have time to scream before being obliterated into a mist of blood by the shockwave. On the ground, Lu Ling lifted his head to see the enormous pitch-black war machine in front of him, emanating an immense sense of oppression, and he felt a wave of relief. It wasn't too late. Zavina instantly understood where Lu Ling's earlier confidence came from. This pitch-black war machine was clearly a trump card from Feng Ling. With the tall figure taking the lead, the two shared a perfect understanding and quickly made their escape towards a gap in the ruins that the shockwave had cleared, running without looking back. Don't think you can escape. The black-armored guards had sharp eyes and immediately spotted Lu Ling and Zavina's movements, quickly giving chase. In the main battlefield, smoke filled the air. Rachel squinted, staring tens of meters across the cockpit at the black war machine. Byron, it seems the item is indeed in Feng Ling's hands. You Blood Alliance dare to oppose me, the Crimson Devil, for a bit of money? Aren't you afraid of my revenge? A brief silence followed. Then, a young, flamboyant voice, dripping with sarcasm, emerged from the pitch-black war machine, clearly heard across the battlefield. TSK, is this a small amount? Rachel, old dog, you really are fat and greasy. It seems today's slaughter knife is just right. If I don't take you down a couple of times, this trip of mine will be for nothing. The words were sharp, and few would dare to speak so boldly, showing complete disregard for the notorious leader of the Crimson Devils, seeking death. Sure enough, Rachel's attitude changed immediately, his tone chilling. Youngster, how arrogant. Even your master Clifford wouldn't dare to speak to me this way. Dare? That drunkard says every day that you're a cunning old dog, full of schemes and tricks aside from mating. Should I call him over to say it to your face? Haha, little brat. In the cockpit, Rachel laughed in anger, suppressing his impulse. When I was out there mixing it up, you were still a pile of mush. Chapter 59. Close yet distant, the engine roared. Little brat. Rachel pushed the joystick to the limit, and the thrusters behind the crimson-black war machine erupted, charging forward with a terrifying momentum that could crush everything. At the same time, a supersized chainsaw sword shot out from the armor, its serrated teeth spinning wildly, emitting a soul-ripping shriek. Bring it on. Byron's voice was excited. The deep red eyes of the pitch-black war machine flared with intensity as the armor valves on its legs opened. Clang, clang. Two crisp and cold metallic sounds echoed as two sword handles and half of their bodies revealed themselves, followed by Byron operating the war machine to draw out two plasma battle blades, their ion beams shimmering between the edges. The engine held wildly. The two enormous war machines collided head-on. Boom! A dull and terrifying roar that cannot be described in words erupted. This is the ultimate expression of human violent aesthetics. Rachel's chainsaw sword, wielding the furious power to tear everything apart, struck fiercely against Byron's plasma blade, which was crossed in defense. The high-speed rotating teeth clashed madly with the searing plasma edge, creating dazzling sparks and chaotic energy flows. Old dog, can you handle this? Byron's maniacal laughter came through the loudspeaker, followed by a heavy press on the accelerator. The massive body of the black iron steed unleashed an incredible thrust, and the light from the dual blades intensified. Bang! Rachel's inevitable chainsaw sword was unexpectedly deflected, and the high-speed rotating teeth even experienced a momentary recoil delay due to the immense force. Impressive. Rachel's voice turned cold, acknowledging that he had underestimated his opponent. However, in the moment the chainsaw sword was deflected, Byron's lethal strike was already upon him. Two intersecting blades formed a cross-slash, aimed directly at Rachel's cockpit. This strike targeting a vital point during the vacuum phase created by the engine's power load. Rachel hurriedly maneuvered the iron steed to retreat while hastily raising the chainsaw sword to defend. A chilling sound of high-temperature melting rang out. Although Rachel reacted with utmost speed, avoiding a critical hit to the cockpit, the searing plasma blade still left a scorch mark on the thick shoulder armor of the Crimson Steed. The ultra-titanium crystal armor was not invincible against the millions of degrees of plasma heat. It's not over yet. Byron laughed heartily, referring to him as an old dog. And the iron steed moved with incredible agility under his command, launching wave after wave of attacks. Rachel found himself completely on the defensive. He rarely fought against the experts of the Blood Alliance, with only one person, Clifford, catching his attention. Unexpectedly, this Clifford's apprentice had changed so much in just a few years. It seems the Blood Alliance has some deep waters behind it. Damn it. At that moment, Rachel caught a glimpse from the corner of his eye. Lu Ling and Zavina had completely vanished into the gap in the ruins far away. The prey at the entrance actually escaped. How bold of those little bastards, daring to lay a hand on me, the Crimson Devil. Today I'll show you the gap between the Blood Alliance and my Crimson Devil. In response, Byron sneered even more contemptuously. If you can't even defeat me, you Crimson Devils aren't even worthy to carry our shoes. 5 kilometers away from the rusty fortress, on the top floor of a building, the sky was pierced by 2 iron steeds. Cold winds from the outer layer of the space station rushed in, causing people's clothing to flutter wildly. Rosaniella put down her high-powered binoculars, exhaling a breath of white mist. She turned to the icy beauty beside her, speaking cheerfully. Congratulations, just as you said. The fish has taken the bait. Feng Ling's eyes were indifferent, her stunning face showing no emotion. You're too early to be happy. Oh, he's already caught in the net. Isn't that enough? I know him. The voice of Feng Ling was incredibly calm. Rachel was inherently suspicious and cunning, without absolute certainty of victory. She would never take action personally, let alone appear in her armored vehicle. Although she seemed to be suppressed by Byron now, if you look at her defense. Despite the predicament, she remained composed. Each block was met with the thickest armor. Upon hearing this, Rosanella's smile faded, and her expression grew serious as she raised her binoculars to observe closely again. Indeed, that crimson-black armored vehicle was continuously retreating, with several burn marks on it. But its core cockpit was still well protected. It seemed to be waiting for something. Was the plan ahead of schedule? Rosanella narrowed her green eyes, speaking cautiously. But we don't have all our personnel and equipment in place, especially the harpoon, which is not ready. If we act recklessly now and fail, there won't be another good opportunity. Feng Ling fell silent, the cold wind blowing her hair. In the distance, another loud explosion occurred as the crimson-black armored vehicle was struck hard on the shoulder by a pure black armored vehicle, staggering back a few steps. Raising a cloud of dust, she looked at the still resilient crimson-black steel weapon, slowly speaking with a cold voice. Terminate the hunt. What? Rosanella put down the binoculars, her green eyes filled with shock and confusion. Abandoning now? This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Rachel had finally taken the bait, and Byron had pushed her into a corner. As long as the harpoon was ready, there's no time. The harpoon plan has flaws. I want 100% kill. Prepare for the second plan. Feng Ling turned, not even glancing at Rosanella again, her black trench coat billowing in the cold wind as she walked straight toward the hovering vehicle at the edge of the rooftop. Rosanella hesitated for a moment, then picked up the communicator. Byron, don't get entangled. Be ready to retreat at any time. Rachel is stalling for time. In the center of the battlefield, smoke filled the air and the engines roared. Old dog, where's your strength? What happened to that arrogance from before? Byron's maniacal laughter echoed through the armored vehicle's loudspeaker. The plasma sword once again tore through the air, striking fiercely at the shoulder of the crimson-black armored vehicle, adding another burn mark. Inside the cockpit, his face was filled with exhilaration from battle, but a hint of imperceptible annoyance flickered in his eyes. Rachel, that old dog, was like an indestructible turtle shell, seemingly in a predicament, but every time she narrowly avoided critical hits, her defense was flawless. If it were the master, they wouldn't be entangled for this long. Just as he was about to attempt breaking through the opponent's defense again, a secure communication channel in the cockpit began to flash urgently. It was Rosanella, telling him to retreat. No way, sister. This old dog is already suppressed by me. Give me a little more time, and I will definitely shatter her cockpit. Shut up. Rosanella was not at all polite. The situation had changed. Try to cover the retreat of the Crimson soldiers. If not necessary, abandon them. The communication ended. Byron was puzzled but still followed her orders, shifting his combat style, his fingers moving like phantoms as he began to warm up the propulsion engine and long-range weapon systems. Trying to leave? Rachel keenly noticed this scene. Her voice cruel. It's too late. I'm going to catch you and skin you alive. As if in response to his words, 5 dark golden supply pods fell at lightning speed from the sky above the Blackwater Bay space station, crashing deep into the ground. Over a kilometer away, Lu Ling, Shervina, Bloodshark, and Ghost Croc, who were fleeing through the ruins, were shocked by the sudden turn of events and the terrifying noise, instinctively looking back. What is that? Wait. That flower looks familiar. Damn. It's the Wanbei flower. Bloodshark lowered his binoculars, a chill running from his feet to the top of his head. What? Run. People are going to die? The influence of the Wanbei family in this star region is undeniable. Just then, everyone's combat terminals almost simultaneously popped up an emergency communication with the highest priority. All units immediately gather at the Rust City exit. The command was very brief, but it made Bloodshark and the others turn pale. Howling City is 3 kilometers away from Rust City, under normal circumstances. Reaching it in 3 minutes would not be a problem. The issue is, they are being hunted down right now. What the hell? Ghost Croc's voice was serious, seemingly wanting to fight back. What do you mean fight back? Run. Bloodshark took the lead. He had barely crawled out of the pile of corpses. And just a moment ago, many of his men had been slaughtered by the Devil's Guard. He realized that this was a game of a mantis stalking the cicada, with the Oriole behind. Cleaning up the Rust Brotherhood was just a pretext. Everyone was bait. The chief is tied up, shouted the fat and thin pirates who managed to escape. Damn it. Ghost Croc, you handle it. I'll go find a vehicle. Bloodshark knew the importance of Lu Ling and made a quick decision. Ghost Croc, along with 2 loyal subordinates in powered armor, immediately went to provide support. Amidst the metal ruins, pipes crisscrossed, and the rusted steel resembled the bones of a giant beast, exuding coldness and death. Lu Ling and Shervina dashed like the wind, fleeing through the narrow passage. Behind them, heavy footsteps sounded like the drumbeats of death, getting closer and closer. This way. Shervina instantly spotted a more concealed fork in the path, grabbing Lu Ling's wrist and abruptly turning in. Just as they plunged into the fork, a pitch-black figure appeared ahead at a pipe corner less than 10 meters away, like a ghost without warning. It was the black armored guard wearing Imperial Officer nano armor beside Rachel, also the captain of the Devil's Guard. The ion cutting blade in his hand had already lit up with a deadly blue glow, aimed straight at Shervina's back. So fast. Be careful. Lu Ling's pupils dilated. A cold light flashed in Shervina's eyes. Without hesitation, she stepped in front of Lu Ling, her body twisting like a taut bowstring, her left arm, covered in nano armor, bravely blocking the deadly blade. Clang! The piercing sound of metal clashing echoed, accompanied by blinding energy sparks. A tremendous force surged from the blade. Shervina let out a muffled groan. Her left arm's nano armor instantly dented, particles shattered, and she staggered back a few steps. But the rebounding force also halted the black armored guard's attack. Tier 2 armor? The black armored guard was somewhat surprised. Lu Ling quickly supported Shervina, his eyes blazing with determination, and immediately exchanged for the efficiency-enhancing drug X from the Tion Shi group in the system. He had taken this before, although he didn't retain detailed data. He remembered its powerful effects. Let us see how long you can hold on. The black armored guard launched a second assault. Just at this critical moment, get the hell away from me. A roar like that of a wild beast exploded at the entrance of the corridor. Accompanied by heavy footsteps and the roar of powered armor, the hulking figure of the ghost crocodile charged in like a mad rhinoceros. The menacing siege rifle in his hand was fully charged. Boom. A massive projectile, carrying devastating force, tore through the air with a deafening sonic boom, striking fiercely at the back of the black armored guard. The guard clearly did not expect reinforcements to arrive so quickly. He was forced to abandon his lethal strike on Shervina. Turning sharply, crossing his arms covered in nano armor in front of his chest, as a ghostly blue energy shield unfolded instantly. Buzz! The magnetic rail projectile slammed into the energy shield, erupting in a dazzling blue light and a thunderous noise. The violent shockwave instantly blew away the rusted metal sheets in the corridor, and the black armored guard was knocked back several meters by the impact, the energy shield flickering violently, emitting a buzzing sound. The powered armor and siege rifle could shred any carbon-based target. Chief, you all retreat first. The ghost crocodile came to support with 2 subordinates. The 3 of them recharged their electromagnetic siege rifles to form a fire network, madly shooting at the black armored guard. As thick magnetic rail projectiles poured out like a torrential rain, temporarily suppressing the enemy. Without any hesitation, Lu Ling helped Shervina, who was bleeding from the mouth and had a broken arm armor. Let us go. The 2 stumbled forward, continuing to sprint deeper into the corridor under the cover of the ghost crocodile's firepower. Shervina, hold on. If we wait until the end to take it, the drug will only last 30 minutes. Lu Ling shoved an X1 injector into her hand. Rachel's target is me. We are merely bait thrown out by Feng Ling. He won't kill me. Lu Ling had understood the essence of the situation from the beginning. We cannot be captured by him. He glanced at the besieged black-armored guard and the two iron riders in the distance, already having made a decision in his heart. Chapter 60 The Remaining Fire, he is still alive. The ghost crocodile was now highly tense, his powered armor fingers tightly gripping the trigger. Feeling the intense recoil transmitted from the powered armor, the magnetic rail projectiles poured out like a metal storm, stirring up large clouds of dust. In the midst of the swirling dust, ghostly blue ripples spread. Ants. A shadow suddenly burst out, the ground beneath its feet cracking with each step, its form trembling before disappearing from view. What? The ghost crocodile focused, the sensors of the powered armor going into alarm mode. The data stream on the holographic screen reflecting in his pupils, but he couldn't capture the enemy's trace at all. In the next moment, a crisis struck from the side. The black-armored guard appeared like a ghost next to the pirate on the left, the ion-cutting blade on his arm barely raised, just making a casual slash. Swish. The power armor, weighing several tons, had its weakest protective armor at the right knee joint crack open, causing hydraulic oil and coolant to spray out instantly. Old Six. Hold him, shouted the pirate named Old Six, who decisively activated the nitrogen shield. Powered by the powerful fusion reactor of the armor, it deployed in an instant. The second attack struck the nitrogen shield, creating ripples. TSK. The black-armored guard revealed himself, quickly retracting his weapon. In the gap during the clumsy turn of the power armor, he suddenly threw out an inconspicuous metal sphere. ZZ. The sphere exploded in midair, releasing a strong electromagnetic pulse. Although this EMP grenade couldn't completely paralyze the core systems of the power armor, it was enough to cause significant interference. ZZ. The sensors and fire control of the pirate on the right malfunctioned. His holographic screen flickered with garbled text, and the cannon's targeting was misaligned. The crosshairs bounced around the black-armored guard but could never stabilize on him. Without the correction from an auxiliary targeting system, hitting a target that moved nearly 100 meters per second and was clad in Tier 3 nano armor was nearly impossible by mere eyesight. In terms of pure individual firepower and defense, the combination of power armor and nitrogen shield could indeed crush nano armor. This set of superalloy armor, weighing several tons, housed an astonishingly powerful fusion reactor. As the saying goes, with great power comes great force. However, the drawbacks were evident. It was cumbersome and far less agile than nano armor. Nano armor aimed for a balance of defense, power, and speed, with its energy core compressed into a palm-sized area at the waist, making its output power incomparable to that of the fusion core of the power armor. Damn it. It's an EMP. The pirate fumbled to restart his system. Watch your back, guy. The pirate charged forward, trying to push the black-armored figure away. However, the black-armored guard was highly experienced. This was all a trap he had intentionally set. Using the momentum, he leapt back and, as he landed, threw another EMP grenade at Guy. In the air, the electromagnetic pulse detonated again. So fast, Guy tried to deploy the nitrogen shield, but the armor on his right arm was still cut with a deep gash, sparks flying. The black-armored guard seized this fleeting opportunity, darting toward the pirate on the right. His ion blade glowing with a ghostly blue light, aimed precisely at the waist core of the pirate. The pirate reacted quickly, activating his helmet's visual targeting. But it was still too late. The reaction core at his lower back was ultimately pierced by the full force of the black-armored guard's strike. Oh no. With a loud hissing sound of depressurization, white low-temperature mist gushed out, suppressing the impending explosion of the reactor. But the steel giant had completely lost all power, standing still like a pile of scrap metal. Without energy, it was a sitting duck, especially since the helmet had been opened. Save me. Fourth brother. Old Four. Guy charged in with his power armor roaring, but it was too late. A cold gleam flashed by. The head of the pirate named Old Four rolled on the ground, blood splattering, his eyes still holding the caution from moments before. Damn it! The ghost crocodile roared as it and the sixth brother picked up the siege rifle and began firing wildly. The black-armored warriors, lacking new strength, could only endure this wave of attacks, with shells striking their armor and creating ripples, their energy bars continuously depleting. Just as they were about to counterattack with a cold snort, it seemed they received some sort of order. They glanced disdainfully at the two and swiftly left, throwing out a mocking remark before departing. Ha ha ha. Ghost crocodile, you're nothing but this after joining the Red Army. Who are you? The ghost crocodile was taken aback, then furiously chased after them. You can't escape. On the spot, the sixth brother threw down the siege rifle and walked step by step to hold up the fourth brother's head, carefully placing it back in its original position. The faceplate slid open, revealing an extremely young face, but the eyes were filled with an indescribable weariness. His voice was hoarse. Fourth brother, what are you doing? Wait for me to repay the ghost crocodile's kindness, and then our 7 brothers will definitely gather. Remember to be reborn as a noble. The sixth brother covered the fourth brother's helmet to prevent the head from falling. Then he reached for the power armor's waist, using access rights to open the power core and pulled out a helium-3 isotope fuel rod from within. The fuel rod was entirely metallic, about 30 centimeters long, gleaming with a brushed finish, and a layer of frost had formed on it. After wiping it off, a glowing number, 54, appeared, indicating the remaining fuel. The sixth brother stored the fuel rod in his compartment and took one last look at the fourth brother before turning to chase after the ghost crocodile. He had become numb. Just yesterday, the joyful laughter of his brothers still echoed in his ears. They had planned to complete this job, claim the leader's reward, and enjoy themselves at Neon Harbor. He wouldn't blame Lu Ling. This path had always hovered on the edge of death, and living today didn't guarantee survival tomorrow. In contrast to the chaotic battle in the distance, the center of the battlefield was much quieter. Byron had recognized the emblem of the Zhuangbai family and was maneuvering the iron cavalry to soar into the sky, with Rachel closely pursuing. The two sides were engaged in fierce combat above Howling City, with missiles and bullets flying, sometimes engaging in ranged attacks, sometimes fighting up close, attracting countless gazes. However, most were not filled with fear, but rather excitement. As for the cover for the Red Army's retreat that Rosanella had instructed, Byron had long forgotten it completely. How? Are you familiar? Further away, the patrol team of Blackwater Bay was gathering. Blackwater Bay neither opposed nor stopped violence, but they would never allow anyone to disrupt their interests. Two unidentified iron cavalry were fighting fiercely on their territory. If either carried weapons of mass destruction, the entire space station would be finished. It didn't matter if people died below. The key was the Sky City, where important figures resided. The patrol team's airship, over 40 meters long, ejected a dark blue iron cavalry, followed by two more airships descending from the sky. A total of 3 iron cavalry forming a triangular formation heading towards Howling City. The captain raised his pulse rifle, radar locking onto the two unknown machines, using a wideband channel to warn. Please cease fire immediately. Otherwise, we have the right to use force to clear the area. However, no one paid attention to him. Warning again. Please cease fire immediately. Otherwise, we have the right to use force to clear the area. The captain shouted again. Damn it, Captain, they are too arrogant. Let's go? A young voice from the wingman echoed in the channel. Hey, you kid, don't meddle in things that don't concern you. Another wingman laughed. Those who can ride iron steeds here are not ordinary people. As long as they don't hit the key facilities, we'll just watch from the sidelines. Got it? Sure enough. The captain issued a warning every 10 seconds, leading the team from a distance, following the battle between Rachel and Byron. The entrance of the initial Rust Brotherhood bunker was now deserted, littered only with corpses and 3 lonely drop pods. The emblem of Zhuangbai flickered with a sinister glow, and even the greediest scavengers in Howling City dared only to watch from afar, too fearful to approach. The air was thick with a suffocating sense of oppression. In the next moment, the surface of the drop pod finished charging, and the heavy door opened like a flower. A hand wrapped in dark bandages reached out, its fingers deeply digging into the metallic surface of the pod before slowly leaping down from several meters high. There were 3 people. No, they were not quite human. They stood about 15 meters tall, their backs curved, their bodies wrapped in dark bandages, with deep blue veins reflecting light on their skin. Their muscular forms were tense, arms slender, and their fingertips extended into metal claws up to 20 centimeters long. What was most terrifying was that their mouths and noses had been artificially erased, and where their eyes should be was only a horizontal sensor. After jumping down, they seemed to be waiting for something. Seconds later, the sensor emitted a scarlet light. Without any warning, the 3 non-humans vanished from their original spot. If Lu Ling were here, she would definitely be able to determine that their genetic strength far exceeded that of Savina and the black-armored ones, almost comparable to Feng Ling, making it nearly impossible to capture their movements. 2 kilometers away, at the border between Howling City and Rust City, metal debris and energy sparks flew everywhere. Savina clashed fiercely with the ion-cutting blade of the black-armored guards, producing piercing clangs and visible shockwaves. After the battle axe module was knocked away, there was no chance to retrieve it, so Lu Ling handed her original weapon to her. Not far away, the heavy power armor of the ghost crocodile could not stop the black-armored ones. He was crazily unleashing firepower, trying to suppress the approaching members of the Devil Guard, creating space for the surrounded red soldiers in the middle. Both sides had skilled fighters, and there were casualties on both ends. Damn it, the communication is down. A red soldier slapped his tactical helmet, inside only producing a crackling noise, the holographic combat screen flickering in and out. Where's our mechanic? That guy Raleigh has already bitten the dust. Lu Ling shouted. I'll establish a temporary communication relay. Another person leaned against a rusty wall, panting, with a face smeared with blood and despair. Is the headquarters trying to wipe us out? Ha ha ha, brothers. To survive, just kill, don't overthink. A fierce-looking old pirate laughed maniacally as he changed magazines and continued to fire. Ghost Crocodile and Old Six tore a hole in the flank of the Devil Guard with their powerful firepower from the power armor, significantly relieving the pressure of the encirclement. Now that the Blood Shark is gone and the Ghost Crocodile is being closely monitored by the elite of the Devil Squad, the remaining Red soldiers can only turn their attention to Lu Ling. After all, in the case of a malfunctioning combat command system, he is the highest-ranking officer present. Lu Ling is hiding behind a bunker, the Eve system interface rapidly scrolling across his retina, and he feels those burning gazes, a kind of indescribable tremor shaking his heart. Those who want to survive should come and take something. Lu Ling ultimately made a decision, pulling out a vial of X-Instinct serum and explaining. This is the latest research product from Dr. Greenleaf, which can temporarily alleviate your discomfort. Lu Ling felt no pressure, shifting the blame onto Greenleaf. The effect was significant. Greenleaf's reputation among the Red soldiers was second only to Lian, and as an expert in biological genetics, everyone quickly received a syringe. Almost simultaneously, 3 small, twisted figures appeared at the high ground on the battlefield without warning. "What is that?" a young Red soldier exclaimed, drawing the attention of some, as this position was within his defense zone. On the high ground, they were silent, their dark bandages fluttering slightly in the wind, and the crimson sensors across their faces coldly surveyed the chaotic battlefield below, as if the Grim Reaper were counting its prey. The intense gunfire momentarily paused, and Shervina suddenly threw a flying knife, its cold gleam slicing through the air, creating a sonic boom. The black-armored individuals did not dare to take it head-on and distanced themselves. Almost as soon as the two landed, they felt a chilling presence rushing towards them and instinctively looked at the 3 non-humans that had appeared. The crimson light swept over, and the black-armored figures cautiously stepped back. "Are these the modified beings from Wanbei?" Rachel Henti mentioned these to him before coming. The black-armored individual waved his hand, and the Devil Squad quickly gathered around him. Shervina pulled out the X-Instinct. X-Instinct, a medication from the Eve store, produced by the Tianxi group, which lacked detailed introduction in the game. However, Lu Ling had a rough understanding of its effects during his years of wandering. It could drastically enhance the user's genetic strength in a very short time, including but not limited to vision, hearing, and dynamic capturability, doubling the speed of sensory information processing, releasing all cellular energy reserves, and providing explosive power and speed. Additionally, it forcibly secretes large amounts of adrenaline, noradrenaline, and other stress hormones, blocking pain, enhancing aggression, concentration, and combat will, approaching instinct. Lu Ling was unsure how much it could enhance the last time he used it. He was at the lowest tier of genes, and the effect was not noticeable. As for side effects, after the effect wears off, the user would fall into an extremely weakened state, with muscle soreness, fatigue, sluggish reflexes, and blurred senses, as if completely drained. However, according to data analysis, the Red soldiers present were elite pirates, already at N or even F-level genes, and theoretically, after taking it, they could temporarily unleash E-level or even higher genetic levels. Shervina, being E-level herself, would certainly possess D-level genetic capabilities after use. "You all go assist the Ghost Crocodile and give them the medicine." Lu Ling threw the medicine to the subordinate of the Ghost Crocodile, who immediately charged out with 4 others. Lu Ling stood up, surveyed all the Red soldiers, and then directly injected the potion into his neck. His voice, transmitted through the temporary communicator, declared that everyone was already at the final moment to break through the Rust City. "Go, drink." Seeing this, all the Red soldiers quickly took the medicine. An extraordinary sensation instantly swept through their bodies. First, there was a brief moment of disorientation, as if their souls were being pulled away, with blurred vision and a buzzing in their ears. But in the next second, a fierce power erupted within them like a dormant volcano. A torrent of indescribable heat coursing through their limbs, igniting their blood. One Red soldier's eyes turned bright red, yet his expression remained eerily calm. He felt the chaotic sounds of the battlefield becoming distinct, able to easily discern who was saying what, who was doing what, and even the visible trajectories of bullets. His vision sharpened, and all high-speed targets seemed to slow down. The information received and processed in an instant revealed at least a dozen unique states. "Buff. My power." The old pirate beside him stared in shock at his bulging muscle fibers, his bones creaking under the strain, yet supported by the newfound strength. The fatigue from hours of continuous fighting vanished, replaced by an endless surge of explosive power within him. Crack! He accidentally squeezed too hard, crushing the grip of his pulse gun. After the initial shock, he erupted into wild laughter. "Wow. Ha ha ha." Fear, hesitation, despair, all negative emotions evaporated instantly, replaced by a primal instinct for battle that took over his mind. Pain was blocked out, leaving only an intense fervor in worship of humanity's ultimate power. Awesome. So exhilarating. The old pirate, who had been suppressed behind cover, suddenly leaned forward, his assault rifle firing accurately, instantly blowing the heads off two Devil Guard members trying to approach. Breakthrough. After taking the medicine, Lu Ling's eyes remained calm as he pointed towards Rust City. Behind him, all the red pirate soldiers leaped into the air one after another, landing with incredible speed and power, each one comparable to a weakened version of the previous Savina. Something's off. The black-armored observer, watching from the shadows, sensed something was amiss but couldn't articulate why. He quietly retreated, blending into deeper darkness. His instincts warning him that the prey before him had transformed into something far more dangerous. Just then, three modified beings on the high ground moved. They made no sound and displayed no intent to kill, merely executing commands with a cold precision, instantly locking onto Lu Ling. Chapter 61. The modifiers are here. In the blink of an eye, they crossed hundreds of meters. Lu Ling caught sight of the fastest one approaching. Get lost. A cold, delicate shout erupted beside him, and a silver streak shot out. At this moment, Zavina was always at the forefront, and she executed several crescent moon slashes with her single blade. Her steel blue eyes tinged with a faint golden glow. This was a characteristic of using X abilities. Clang. In the moment of impact, sparks flew, and a visible shockwave exploded outward in a circular pattern. The ground beneath Zavina collapsed with a thunderous roar, cracks spreading wildly like a spider web. Yet her slender figure did not retreat an inch. Her blade firmly held the elongated claw in place, producing a grating sound that made one's teeth ache, and even revealed a slight crack beginning to form on the blade. They were locked in a standoff, but only for an instant. Zavina suddenly exerted force, the blade scraping against the claw and creating a blinding spark, forcing the cyborg to adopt a defensive posture. However, this was merely a feint. Her true killing blow erupted as she flicked her wrist, driving the blade at a sharper angle directly towards the opponent's sensor. Bang! Another deafening explosion echoed as the cyborg barely managed to block this deadly strike with its claws. The immense backlash surged through Zavina, but she used this force to twist her waist and executed a clean backflip, landing steadily in front of Lu Ling. The moment she touched down, the battle blade that had withstood two terrifying impacts finally succumbed to the pressure, shattering into pieces like moonlight fading away. The cyborg was also forced back a step by this sheer force, its crimson sensor flashing rapidly, leaving one to wonder whether it was contemplating or enraged. Lu Ling's eyes widened in surprise. The strength of these monsters was at least D-class, or even higher. If it weren't for X's instinctively pushing Zavina to her limits, that previous claw strike would not have been so easily blocked. Is that shattered jade alloy? The stout and slender brothers flanking Lu Ling looked serious. Be careful. We can't engage directly. The Iron Cavalry's ship-slicing blade is made of this material. Shattered jade alloy? Lu Ling certainly knew about it. It was an amorphous metal synthesized using extreme techniques, lacking crystal boundary weaknesses, with terrifying strength and hardness, valued at thousands of star coins per kilogram in Blackwater Bay, making it a top-tier weapon armor material. Whoosh. At that moment, two more cyborgs had already arrived, moving faster and attacking more fiercely. Their shattered jade claws aimed directly at Zavina's side. However, evidently, bolstered by a buff, Zavina's genetic strength had temporarily surpassed D-class, and her reaction speed reached a new realm. She swiftly grabbed Lu Ling, pushing off the ground, and retreated like a ghost for several meters, narrowly avoiding the deadly pincer attack. The two claws struck the air, emitting a piercing shriek that sent chills down one's spine. Roar! A booming engine sound approached rapidly, the gravelly voice of Blood Shark echoing through the channel. What in the world are these three things? A heavily modified heavy transport flyer, welded with thick steel plates and ramming horns, dove from above, crashing towards the attacking cyborgs with a reckless abandon that seemed destined for mutual destruction. Boom! The ground shook, and a metallic, ear-piercing bending sound resonated beneath their feet. The armored front of the heavy flyer skidded across the ground, kicking up dirt and sparks, revealing the grim metallic framework of a space station beneath. The tremendous impact caused the vehicle to tremble violently, with its front severely deformed. The three modified individuals had already dispersed. As they landed, the closest one, known as the Red Soldier, was ready with a lethal move, and they collectively lifted a heavy container to smash it down. A loud crash echoed, and dust filled the air. Forget it, retreat quickly. The drug's effect won't last long. Only Lu Ling understood the true power of these monsters. Apart from Zavina, none of those present could match them. If they went on a rampage, no one would be able to stop them. The heavy armored vehicle roared as it reversed, performing a stylish drift before stopping in front of the group. Bloodshark shouted, "Brothers, there's no time. Get in the car." Many red soldiers had already run far away, with only a small number stuck against the demon guard. However, this group of demon guards had fallen into a dire situation, having lost most of their members. Facing the red soldiers, who possessed genetic strengths at the E level, their powers, speed, and reflexes surged beyond the norm, leaving Bloodshark stunned. The red soldiers began to massacre the demon guards without any awareness of their circumstances. What kind of drug are they on? Lu Ling wasted no time and directly threw a vial of X-Instinct serum. Blood Shark instinctively caught it, feeling the coldness in his hand. His eyes filled with shock and excitement. In this era, using drugs to enhance strength and ensure survival was completely normal. As long as he was the one left standing at the end, who cared about side effects? Without hesitation, he swallowed it, and instead of retreating, he kicked open the car door, grabbing the iconic large-caliber Skullcrusher shotgun. At the same time, he tossed a battle axe module to Zavina. Catch! I specially retrieved this for you. Zavina's eyes lit up as she accurately caught it and quickly connected it to her nano armor for charging. Brothers, this is a rare opportunity. We can't let it slip away. Blood Shark chambered around in the shotgun with a click, baring his white teeth in a savage grin, his face openly displaying bloodlust and madness. We must take down this group of demon guards today, leaving none alive. For our fallen brothers. Kill. Revenge. With their leader back. The pirates' inherent ferocity was fully ignited. They no longer thought of fleeing. Under Blood Shark's command, a mere dozen of them bravely charged at the demon guards. The drug's effect lasts only half an hour. Lu Ling shouted. Each person had a different command style, and their strategic choices varied greatly. For Lu Ling, his reputation wasn't enough to command everyone. If the X serum was used to escape, at least most of the elite red soldiers could survive. In other words, they could at least preserve their numbers. Blood Shark, however, chose to exploit the temporary advantage to slaughter the demon guards, a high-reward path that naturally came with high risks. If Rachel had any trump cards, everyone present would likely meet their end. However, having chosen this path, Lu Ling could only minimize the risks. With a loud crash, the heavy container smashed down, torn apart by the combined strength of the red soldiers. Through the swirling dust, 3 distorted figures slowly rose, like demons emerging from their cocoons. This attack posed no substantial harm to them. The blue veins on their faces glimmered as the metallic sensors flashed red, simultaneously locking onto the target. Lu Ling's gaze sharpened as he looked at the target, and their eyes met in silent understanding. Then let us fight. You two cover us. Lu Ling commanded in a low voice, sweeping his hands at his waist, and 2 pulse pistols began to charge energy. At this moment, a surge of heat coursed through him, heightening his senses to the extreme. The 2 brothers exchanged glances, their eyes flashing with ferocity. They knew this was a life-or-death moment. The heavier of the 2 unfolded a nano-shield to protect Lu Ling, while the lighter one sprang onto the roof of a nearby twisted heavy hover vehicle, firmly gripping a 2-meter-long, 22mm caliber cannon. Advancing a step, the target swung her arms, and 2 battle axes, reconstructed at high speed from nanomaterials, coalesced in her hands. Their blades gleaming coldly. She moved. Facing the 3 modified monsters, she chose not to defend, but to strike first. There were no flashy moves, only pure speed and strength. Her figure transformed into a silver lightning bolt that tore through the air, moving so fast that it left a blurred afterimage in its wake. The dual axes sliced through the air with a piercing shriek, aimed directly at the sensor of the central modified being. Clang! The claws made of shattered alloy collided violently with the high-frequency energy axis. This time, enhanced by charging particles, it was no longer a mere metal clash. The shockwave generated by the violent force sent tremors through the ground, plowing it once more. The modified being was caught off guard by this sudden, overwhelming strength, causing its arm to drop sharply, and its slender legs began to buckle. The intense energy impact shattered the axe blade, but the power surging within her seemed inexhaustible. With the nanomaterials flowing swiftly to restore the broken blade in an instant, its cold glint even more pronounced. She faced 3 opponents with unstoppable momentum, showing no signs of weakness. Seizing the opportunity, the lighter brother let loose a barrage of fire, his instincts allowing him to predict the landing spots of the modified beings with precision. The bullets rained down like a storm, yet they were, after all, killing machines modified by a notorious family. The fist-sized supersonic armor-piercing rounds failed to tear through their bodies, merely stripping away some bandages. The embedded bullets, glowing red, were slowly pushed out and fell to the ground, the air filled with a burnt odor. The modified beings on both sides no longer attempted to clash head-on with her brilliance, but instead scattered instantly, moving around her at a speed far surpassing before, attacking from various tricky angles with their alloy claws. A fierce battle unfolded in the ruins, with each strike being lethal and brutal. She grew more valiant with each exchange, her movements becoming increasingly adept. Fatty, protect her left side, Lu Ling shouted, his pulse pistols fully charged, locking onto the rapidly moving shadow of a modified being on the right. But he did not fire immediately. He was waiting for the perfect moment to create a distraction. The heavy-set man let out a roar, charging towards the left side of the target with a massive nano shield, forcing a cyborg to turn and attack him. The claws tore through the nanostructure, and the surface of the shield fluctuated violently with energy. At that moment, as the heavy impact struck, the man's face went pale. He realized how terrifying this inhuman battle truly was, something he couldn't intervene in at all. The slender figure seized the opportunity, grabbing the machine gun and unleashing a barrage. The gun spat out flames several meters long as armor-piercing rounds struck the alloy claws and the cyborg's resilient body, exploding into dazzling sparks. Although the defense couldn't be penetrated, the overwhelming impact and kinetic energy forced the cyborg to stagger backward, leaving deep footprints in the ground with each step. "Now, the target," he shouted, raising his gun to predict the landing point and firing a pulse cannon to block its retreat. The moment the pressure on the target reduced, she seized the opportunity, swinging her dual axes to deflect the claws of the cyborg in front of her. Her body spun like a top, delivering a powerful horizontal sweep accompanied by a piercing sound, striking a fatal blow to the cyborg. It hurriedly tried to block, but that was merely a feint. With a cry of "die," the other axe, accompanied by a terrifying sonic boom, accurately struck the cyborg's neck. The cyborg seemed to foresee this lethal attack, attempting to lift another claw to block and even tilting its head to dodge. But it was too fast, too precise. This strike contained the absolute peak of her power. There was no explosive clash of metal, only the sickening sound of bones and high-strength composite material being forcibly torn apart. The cyborg's body quivered twice, and the crimson sensor across its head flickered like a candle in the wind before finally dimming completely, its raised claw dropping limply. A single fatal blow. The entire battlefield seemed to have been muted, leaving only the echo of the machine gun's rotating barrel and the hissing sound of dissipating energy. The heavy-set man's eyes widened in disbelief and admiration. It was incredible. All of this happened in an instant. She quickly created distance, breathing slightly heavier. That last move had taken a lot out of her, but a continuous stream of power surged within her, allowing her to recover quickly. The other two cyborgs remained silent. Their crimson sensors locked onto her. It seemed they understood that to capture the target, they had to first deal with this obstacle. The battle erupted once more. But her earth-shattering move also proclaimed that these killing monsters from the family were not invincible. On the other side of the battlefield, a man stood atop a discarded shipping container, shouting, "Ha! Brothers, let us tear the devils apart." The shotgun in his hands roared with each blast, resembling the scythe of death. The barrel, as thick as a bowl, unleashed a storm of scorching steel pellets, turning a member of the Devil's Guard attempting a flanking attack into a sieve. Fast, accurate, ruthless. Blood and metal fragments mixed with a burnt smell splattered everywhere, and the cries of the Devil's Guards echoed across the battlefield, their every attack intention seen through by the enemy. The soldiers injected with the X serum had completely transformed into humanoid beasts. Their strength, speed, and reflexes, under the influence of the X1 drug, surpassed physiological limits. With fear completely blocked out, leaving only the primal and ferocious instinct to kill. It was a one-sided massacre, no matter from which direction one tried to attack. The soldiers always struck first. Die. The old pirate was decisive in his actions, easily blocking a long knife thrust by a Devil's Guard with his weapon, then swiftly grabbing the intruder's wrist. In the horrified gaze of his opponent, his arm's muscles visibly bulged as he exerted force. With a crunch, metal bent accompanied by the sound of bones cracking, the man's wrist, along with the exoskeleton armor, was brutally snapped by the old soldier. He grinned viciously and thrust the long knife deep into the opponent's neck, blood spurting out. In another area, 3 drugged soldiers pounced on a lone elite from the Devil's Guard like hungry wolves, overwhelming him on the ground. One of them brutally punched, shattering the armor's core, causing a humming energy release, while the other 2 mercilessly slashed down with their weapons. The man didn't even have time to scream before his head flew off. "You devils are the real devils. Oh, help me. Don't come near me. Brother Gia, save me." Cries of despair filled the air, with some soldiers continuing to viciously bite even after losing an arm. The line of the Devil's Guards completely collapsed. Their proud teamwork and sophisticated equipment were as fragile as paper in the face of absolute strength and insane will. The blood shark, never wearing a helmet, licked the blood foam that splattered at the corner of his mouth with his rough tongue, a grin slowly spreading across his face as he took a deep breath of the thick, bloody air. He reveled in this battle, freely unleashing humanity's most primal nature. Further away, the ghost crocodile was drenched in blood, his powered armor damaged in multiple places, revealing a combat suit soaked in sweat underneath. He gasped heavily, propping himself up with a siege rifle that had long run out of ammo, the barrel severed by a sharp object, revealing a smooth cross-section. Beside him, Old Six was half-kneeling, blood flowing through the cracked helmet onto the muddy ground, clearly severely injured. Opposite them, the black-armored guard's ion-cutting blade evaporated the blood, and the pure black nano-armor still shimmered with a cold luster. However, his movements were noticeably less composed than before, and his breathing grew heavier. You madman. His gaze swept over the main battlefield not far away, where the soldiers were being slaughtered by the red soldiers. His tone finally lost its previous calmness and arrogance, questioning how it had come to this. Where had it all gone wrong? He looked up at the sky, where Rachel was intensely engaged in battle with the Knights of the Blood Alliance, overwhelmed. At that moment, "Boss, steady, don't panic. I'm coming." A figure shot from the side ruins like an arrow. It was several of the ghost crocodile's trusted subordinates who had taken the X serum. One of them with a clear target, heading straight for the ghost crocodile and Old Six. The other two worked in perfect harmony, spreading out to the sides, their weapons firing precise shots for cover. One focused on the main attack, while the other targeted the landing spots of the black armored guards. Pulsed energy beams and magnetic projectiles wove together into a deadly web of firepower, leaving the black armored guard with no way to evade. The pulsed round struck his armor, causing ripples. How is this possible? Alarm bells rang wildly in his mind, and then rage and killing intent flashed in his eyes. Like the earlier encounter with the woman in silver armor, he completely abandoned defense and pushed his speed to the limit. Since you seek death, I will grant it to you. He suddenly stomped the ground, his figure transforming into a blurred black shadow, proactively charging toward the two red soldiers providing cover. The ion-cutting blade traced a silent arc of death in the air. Good. The two red soldiers not only did not retreat, but remained calm, drawing alloy combat knives from behind to meet him. Clang. Sparks flew, and the black armored guard's pupils widened uncontrollably, his face showing shock as he quickly retreated 10 meters using the force of the impact. He stabilized his stance, but a slight numbness spread through the hand gripping the blade. He then looked up sharply at the two red soldiers, whose cold gazes radiated a ferocious aura. This power was too familiar, instantly reminding him of the pressure he felt when facing that silver-armored woman, that pure strength. Now there were two monsters comparable to her. He finally understood why the devil guards had been defeated. Previously, he thought it was just the blood sharks acting recklessly, trading blood for blood, life for life, believing that if they opened up a situation, they could easily reap the rewards later. But now it seemed he was gravely mistaken. This was not a battle of the same level at all. Something was off. They must be on drugs. What kind of drug could make someone like this? I must retreat. I can't die here. The black-armored guard's thoughts raced, and an indescribable fear and sense of crisis surged in his heart. Just as he intended to turn and escape, the two red soldiers did not give him the chance, catching up to him at a speed that matched his own, the short distance of mere meters closing in an instant. The assault continued with one focusing on the attack, while the other sealed off his escape route. The black-armored guard felt a heavy weight in his heart. He believed that in a one-on-one fight, he could completely crush either of them with the performance of his nano-armor. But now, facing the two-pronged attack, his focus and energy were pushed to the extreme, leaving him no time to think about an escape. Meanwhile, on the other side, Ghost Croc and Old Six were in a frenzy. "Boss, quickly take the drug. We can survive this." The supporting red soldiers had reached Ghost Croc and Old Six's side, swiftly pulling out X-ability drug tubes. "Old Six, you take it too. Ah Chong. You guys didn't leave?" Ghost Croc felt warmth in his heart as he saw Ah Chong approach, and he unhesitatingly opened his mask, jabbing the drug into his neck. On the other side, though Old Six was somewhat dazed, he managed to take the drug with Ah Chong's help. "The Blood Shark boss has come to support us," Ah Chong said excitedly, his tone clear. "This drug was given to us by the chief medical officer to be used at the last moment. It only lasts for 30 minutes. So that's how it is. The chief engineer is Lu Ling's title on the Yangtze, while the chief mechanic is a title within the Red Soldiers. All pirates on the Yangtze refer to Lu Ling as the chief engineer or the chief, while others on different ships only call him the chief." A surge of indescribable heat exploded within the two bodies. The force made the individual feel a violent energy pumping from the heart to the limbs, instantly banishing fatigue and pain. His senses sharpened. Every detail of the battlefield became crystal clear, and his once heavy body felt light and full of explosive power. The pain from broken ribs vanished, and he clenched his fist, the steel gauntlet of his armor emitting a faint groan. The transformation of the other individual was even more astonishing. The aura of his severe injuries surged dramatically, and under the shattered helmet, his previously vacant eyes regained their spark. "I'm not dead yet." The realization struck him as he lifted his face in disbelief. "Sixth brother." Upon looking over, a comrade was shocked to find that one of the sixth brother's eyes had burst, and his face bore a scar burned by high temperatures, with flesh visibly damaged and blood flowing profusely. Clearly, he had narrowly escaped death at the hands of a formidable foe. "Sixth brother, go and avenge fourth brother," the first individual urged, knowing this was their only chance. With a roar that was more beast than man, the sixth brother felt the effects of the drugs ignite within him, charging toward the battlefield with a resolve for mutual destruction. The armored guard had just managed to shake off the entanglement of the two soldiers when he felt a gust of wind from behind. Infuriated, he forcefully turned, swinging his ion blade backward. The energy output of the ion blade reached its peak, slicing through the sixth brother's armor and embedding deeply under his ribs. However, the sixth brother was unfazed. This was a deliberate opening he had exposed. A sinister grin crossed his face as he used his body to firmly trap the ion blade, continuing his charge. In an instant, facing the high-speed collision of several tons of powered armor, the armored guard was both startled and enraged. "Madman!" he shouted, unleashing all his strength to break free from the encirclement of the two soldiers. With a splatter, an arm flew into the air, blood gushing out. The sixth brother remained calm as he seized the armored guard's shoulder with his remaining armored arm, rendering him immobile. "Kill!" the two soldiers shouted, their blades glinting as they thrust toward the armored guard's back. The nano armor activated, absorbing the attack. "Damn it, it's tough, again." The energy surged, blocking the strike once more. The two soldiers exchanged glances and shouted, again, with all our might. Finally, the blade pierced through the nano armor's defense, embedding itself in the guard's back. Ugh! The energy readings were nearing their limit. The armored guard trembled, gripping the ion blade tightly. "I want to die here. You can't kill me." He suddenly unleashed a surge of power, throwing off the two soldiers behind him, and swung his sword to sever the sixth brother's right hand. In this moment of desperation, the sword's light cut through the armor as if it were paper. "Don't think you can escape." At that moment, the first individual roared like thunder, ready for this very moment. A ceaseless power surged within him. His massive frame charged with a ferocious momentum, crashing into the armored guard who was held in place by the sixth brother. Bang! A sound so deep it was heart-stopping echoed, shaking the ground, causing the blood shark, which was engaged in combat nearby, to suddenly raise its head. The ghost crocodile crashed solidly into the black armored guard, the immense impact driving both of them deep into the ground. The nano armor on the black armored guard flickered violently, and the last shield shattered. "Lock it!" the ghost crocodile roared. 3 red soldiers rushed in, throwing specially designed alloy chains with high-voltage currents. The drones on their heads quickly coiled around the black armored figure's limbs and neck like agile snakes. "Pull!" The 3 men ran backward in 3 directions, forcibly dragging the black armored figure from the ground and lifting him into the air. Ugh! The black armored man tried to reach for the chain around his neck, but the immense force rendered him immobile. "Titan!" shouted the ghost crocodile. The 3 red soldiers pulled back again, the joints of the chains synchronously tightening, each movement a battle of strength. "I don't want to die." The 3 massive forces began to constrict, causing the black armored man to tremble violently. He could clearly sense that the nano armor around his neck was nearing the brink of collapse. Electric! Zzz! A brilliant blue electric spark was released. Although it couldn't penetrate the nano armor, the intense feeling of paralysis and restraint eliminated the black armored guard's remaining struggles. Bang! The chain around his neck crushed the armor, shattering the vertebrae, and the black armored man's head immediately drooped down. The 3 red soldiers retracted the chains, and the black armored figure fell into a deep pit. The ghost crocodile reached out to catch him. At that moment, the black armored man's body was limp and powerless, resembling a large chick in the hands of the 2-meter-5 ghost crocodile. The nano armor slowly dissipated, revealing the true appearance of the black armored man. The ghost crocodile sighed upon seeing it. "It's really you, sixth brother." Suddenly, one of the red soldiers shouted, and the ghost crocodile immediately jumped out of the pit. Just then, the recently standing sixth brother collapsed with a thud. He had lost an arm and forearm and could no longer support himself. "Sixth brother." The ghost crocodile dropped the black armored body and rushed over, crushing the latch of the powered armor, then roughly tearing open the back entry to carefully drag him out. "There's still hope. The medicine is still effective. Hurry." The ghost crocodile carefully lifted him up, as if handling fragile porcelain, with the powered armor's hands steady. Even while running fast, there was no wobbling, heading towards Rust City. The other 2 red soldiers followed closely, vigilantly scanning the blood-soaked ruins. All that remained in the area was the lingering smell of blood and the traces of battle, along with the cold body at the edge of the deep pit. A figure approached, silently looking down. The remaining nano armor was slowly retracting, revealing a light, pale face with a hint of youthful innocence, half of which was smeared with blood. Familiar features surfaced in his mind. "Sigh," he murmured, crouching down to silently peel away the Imperial Officer Level 3 nano armor. At this moment, the energy core was dim, leaving only the slowly dissipating warmth. "Kid, why are you alive? Why abandon a promising future in the Navy to come to Blackwater Bay as a pirate? You could have gone home, but instead, you allied with Rachel and even turned against us." At this point, a sneer appeared on his lips as he yanked out the nano belt, his actions rough. "Here. Too many people can strip you of that skin. Look at your current state." Achong released the nanomaterials from his arm. extending his rough palm to gently brush against the young man's cold cheek. A dead person is nothing more than a pile of rotten flesh. Soaked in black water for too long, their blood and heart are cold and hard. Killing and being killed are just that. Do you really think you can change our world? Naive. Achong withdrew his hand and looked around at the war-ravaged ruins, with corpses scattered everywhere and smoke still lingering. In the distance, faint gunshots and explosions could still be heard. It was the blood sharks cleaning up the last remnants of the enemy, and the Devil's Guard struggling in despair. He stuffed the nanobelt into his tactical backpack. You shouldn't have come here. Your mother must be very sad. But you're not being honest either, treating Brother Six like this. Thankfully, I killed you myself. Rest in peace. Chapter 63, Undercurrents on the Other Side. Shiwena slowly retracted her battle axe, as the last modified human in front of her collapsed with a thud. The crimson sensors went completely dark, and the deep blue veins lost their luster. After numerous fierce battles in Blackwater Bay, her Atari's killing skills had become increasingly refined. Lu Ling was also accustomed to these scenes. He was no longer the naive newcomer he once was. Everywhere was visible power and sexual trading, deception, and collusion for profit. To survive, one had to rely on connections or strength, and the rest depended on luck, living day by day. The blood shark drove up in the previously used armored vehicle, its body riddled with bullet holes and torn armor, the hood twisted and deformed, and the front end collapsed significantly. Chief, get in. There is no time. Lu Ling and the others hurriedly jumped into the back compartment as the engine roared, speeding towards Rust City. Inside the vehicle, Lu Ling looked at the silent Red Army pirates. There had been over 60 of them when they arrived, but now only about 20 remained. Most of them were injured, their armor tattered. These 60-plus men were the elite forces of the Red Army. In this battle, they had wiped out the once unreachable main force of the Devil's Guards. But the cost was that nearly half of their brothers would forever remain in these ruins. The ghost crocodile held a man in his arms, his face nearly disfigured, deep in a coma, sustained only by instinct. Faced with this situation, Lu Ling had no solution. The medicines in the Eve store had various effects, but none were related to healing, unless the medical center construction module was unlocked. But construction costs started in the hundreds of billions of ISK. Just then, Achong pulled out the Imperial officer's nanomaterial armor belt from his backpack and tossed it to Lu Ling. Commander, this is his armor. Achong's expression was solemn. Without you, perhaps all our brothers would have met the same fate. Thank you. Lu Ling held the belt tightly, looking at these resolute men, sighing inwardly. Too many had been left behind here. Outside the car window, the skyscrapers of Howling City and the fragmented neon lights were rapidly receding. At this moment, Rachel and Byron were locked in a fierce battle above the Gear Industrial Zone. The two iron steeds, their steel bodies covered in scars and blackened cracks from artillery fire, maneuvered in the air, firing shells that exploded into flames in the industrial area below. In the distance, 3 patrol units of Blackwater Bay dared not approach. How come their ammunition still hasn't run out? A notification came from above, indicating that the Red Devil and Blood Alliance pilots were engaged in combat, and they were instructed to maintain their distance. No wonder. Boom. Another earth-shattering collision. The tremendous impact caused both units to shake violently, and Byron's unit was sent flying several hundred meters. Rachel, taking advantage of the situation, roared forward with a thunderous engine. Awesome. That old dog truly is an old dog. Byron's maniacal laughter echoed through the loudspeaker as he narrowly dodged Rachel's powerful charge, slashing at the opponent's shoulder armor with his combat knife, leaving another black mark. On the holographic control screen, the fuel gauge had already entered the yellow warning zone, and the remote ammunition showed red, indicating depletion. You little brat, keep hiding. Rachel's voice was filled with brutality and impatience. He held the upper hand in power, but Byron was like a slippery eel, managing to evade every time. Beep beep beep. Inside the cockpit, a high-priority encrypted communication channel sounded. My lord, urgent battle report. The Devil Guards have been wiped out at the outskirts of Howling City. Lord Corey is dead. The signal from the Zhuanbei modified unit is lost. Our people checked, and everything has been destroyed. What? Rachel couldn't believe it. He had invested significant effort and resources into this ambush plan, and now it had backfired? A surge of furious anger erupted within him. Just then, Rachel suddenly jolted, quickly pulling out a vial from the storage compartment and injecting it into his thick neck. A chilling sensation swept over him. Calm down, calm down. The more critical the moment, the more one must stay composed. When he lifted his head again, his eyes were clear. Feng Ling, my good daughter. Your tactics truly amaze me. A cold glint flashed in Rachel's eyes as he ordered Lucius to immediately control the entrance and exit of the slaughterhouse. Yes. After the communication ended, Rachel tightened his grip on the joystick, his small eyes glinting with an unknown light. What a shameful day. The last person who made him feel this embarrassed had been torn apart and turned to ashes. Feng Ling, Lu Ling. That earthling. No, he must not escape Blackwater Bay. If he does, everything will be over. Old dog. Byron's mocking voice came again, trying to provoke him. Rachel activated the loudspeaker, his voice chilling. Get lost. If you continue to fight me, the Red Devil will spare no effort to fight you to the death. As his words fell, Byron squinted, his expression shifting between moods. He could naturally sense the madness and determination in Rachel's words. Is this old dog serious? Byron hesitated. While he was young and capable, with decent piloting talent, he did not have the courage to provoke a deadly feud between the two factions. At least, he had a clear understanding of his position, what he should do and what he shouldn't. Forget it, the second sister said to retreat. After weighing the pros and cons, Byron reassured himself that he wasn't backing down from this old dog, but rather obeying the organization's strategic retreat. However, he still had to throw out some harsh words. Haha, you old dog, my blood alliance fears you not. I will surely take your head one day. Rachel scoffed and maneuvered her iron cavalry to leave the Gears industrial area, heading towards Rust City. Byron also ceased the pursuit, flying away from the Blood Alliance's designated evacuation point without looking back. At the Rust City gathering point, several flying vehicles had been waiting for a while, along with a small number of vigilant Red Soldiers pirates. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Rachel has already left. The pirates' shouts and warnings intertwined. Lu Ling and Shi Weina jumped out of the heavy armored flying vehicle and climbed into a brand new armored vehicle. The plump and slender brothers synchronously took the co-pilot seat and started the engine. With the roar of the turbo, they sped towards the entrance of Blackwater Bay, the very place they had originally entered. Lu Ling gripped the handrail tightly, feeling a slight sense of weightlessness, his body still burning with heat. The effect of the X1 drug had 10 minutes left. Now, they faced the final hurdle. Inside a factory deep within the slaughterhouse, Lucius stood on a makeshift command platform. His dark silver uniform neat and clean, and his silver-white hair meticulously styled, his expression stern like a classical sculpture. Data streams continuously flickered across his gold-rimmed holographic glasses, and his brow was furrowed. On the screen, the crimson dots representing Feng Ling and her falling goose guards were firmly nailed at the entrance and exit gate of Blackwater Bay, like nails. The green dots of their attacking forces launched repeated assaults, but were shattered in that area, dimming and disappearing. A squad leader hurried over, his face rugged and fierce, yet trying to restrain himself in front of Lucius, looking somewhat comical. Sir, the enemy is too tough to crack. We need at least 5 more heavy firepower teams for support. Lucius slowly turned around. Over 400 of them, 2 heavy firepower teams. And even a group of women can't take them down? The squad leader knelt in fear. They occupy advantageous terrain, are well-equipped, and their coordination is extremely precise. Our fire points were just set up when they were accurately taken out. Report. At that moment, the communications officer spoke up. We have spotted the Red Soldier convoy. They have left Rust City and are moving towards the gate. Lucius pinched the bridge of his nose irritably. According to his original plan, the Devil's Guard was supposed to eliminate the Red Soldiers in Howling City and then return to the gate after capturing Lu Ling to thoroughly wipe out the remaining forces of Feng Ling, while avoiding exposing the trump card given by the Zhuangbi family. Now, the Devil's Guard and the Zhuangbi's modifications had been eliminated by the Red Soldiers, and Rachel was also restrained by the Iron Cavalry of the Blood Alliance. When did the problem arise? Lucius closed his eyes, thinking calmly. In terms of both numbers and strength, the Devil's Guard should be able to crush the elite Red Soldiers. Only Feng Ling's falling goose guards could compare. There should have been no mistakes at this stage. Suddenly, a clue flashed by. Is it Lu Ling, that self-proclaimed Earthling, the chief mechanic of the Red Soldiers? Report. The Red Soldier convoy is 400 meters from the gate. Lucius sighed. The core strength of the Devil's Guard was the fulcrum of the entire plan, the ace in eliminating Feng Ling. The Zhuangbi family's modifications were not even supposed to be deployed in the original plan. The 2 trump cards have been played, yet they failed to curb the opponent's momentum. Lucius looked down at the more than 2,000 elite pirates, the foundation on which Rachel relied for survival. He believed that sacrificing them here in exchange for Feng Ling was not worth it. The risks were high, and success was not guaranteed. With the blockade at the slaughterhouse, there was no longer a need for execution. He simply didn't have the means to deal with Feng Ling. Report. The Red Brigade convoy is 100 meters from the gate. At this moment, all command levels turned their attention. Lucius was momentarily conflicted. He thought about preserving Rachel's foundation against the Red Devils, waiting for an opportunity to eliminate both the Red Brigade and Feng Ling in due time. However, in that split second, Bloodshark and the armored convoy had already charged through the gate, and the elite Red Devils defending the gate were caught off guard and immediately collapsed. Let us take our time. Lucius made a decision, or perhaps Bloodshark made it for him. Yet he was unaware that this might be Rachel's last chance for survival. Although he was Rachel's top confidant, a clever strategist, and quite astute, it was clear that Rachel could not share all her secrets with him. Lucius was smart but also prone to overthinking. He guessed some things, but not all. In fact, when certain strategic deployments required guessing the leader's thoughts. It was already a sign of error. At the lower gate of Blackwater Bay, several flying vehicles were haphazardly parked around, their bodies riddled with bullet holes and scorch marks. Some still emitting black smoke. Bloodshark jumped out and immediately engaged in fierce gunfire with the encircling Red Devil pirates. On the unloading platform outside the gate, a few assault boats' faint outlines could be seen. Lu Ling caught a glimpse of Feng Ling and the others boarding one through the car window. Quick, quick, quick! Get out! Counterattack! Counterattack! The thin man drove the flying vehicle, narrowly stopping behind the armored vehicle of the Ghost Crocodile. The Ghost Crocodile did not engage in battle. Clutching Old Six, he rushed toward the assault boats at the dock under the cover of a Chong and others. The car door flung open, and Zavina was the first to leap out, her dual pistols firing with deadly precision, each shot finding its mark. The chubby and thin brothers followed closely. The chubby one expertly deployed a nanoalloy shield, firmly protecting Lu Ling as she exited the vehicle. Magnetic rail projectiles and energy beams rained down on the shield like hail, sparking and rippling with blinding flashes. The thin man took cover behind it, occasionally seeking opportunities to retaliate. The effects of the X1 drug still lingered, enhancing his strength, speed, reflexes, and dynamic vision to a new level. One Red Brigade pirate, despite being shot in the shoulder and blood staining half of his body, seemed oblivious to the pain. He peeked out from behind cover, firing 3 rounds from his magnetic rail rifle, taking down 3 Red Devil pirates attempting to encircle him. Another Red Brigade member, in a poor position, brazenly charged out under the fire of several enemies, dodging the incoming bullets. With a swift swing of his energy axe, he cleaved one enemy in half along with his armor, then deflected another enemy's bayonet with a reverse motion, kicking him several meters away and using the recoil to retreat back into cover. Almost all Red Brigade members were hitting their targets, launching an aggressive offensive. This was the power of genetic enhancement. This is also the fundamental reason why those from the Empire view the inferior beings as insignificant. In such a cruel environment, without strong genetic potential, one doesn't even qualify to be cannon fodder. Feng Ling stood at the entrance of the assault boat's rear hatch, her slender eyes calmly scanning the brutal battlefield ahead, a hint of undeniable astonishment flickering in her gaze. She was well aware of the capabilities of the Blood Shark, the Ghost Crocodile, and those seasoned veterans she recognized. They were undoubtedly fierce, but it was impossible for them to reach the current situation. The overall explosive power and combat proficiency had risen to an extraordinary level. Her gaze finally settled on Lu Ling, who was closely protected by the stout and lean brothers. This young man from Earth, with black hair and black eyes, was calmly observing the battlefield while rapidly approaching the dock. My chief mechanic always brings unexpected surprises. Shivina kicked open the hatch, releasing a massive pressure that revealed the external space environment. Go! Lu Ling grabbed Shivina, and the two were propelled out of Blackwater Bay by the pressure, with the stout and lean brothers following closely behind. Feeling the intense weightlessness, Shivina used the propulsion device to continuously correct their direction, moving towards the assault boat. By choosing the fastest route, they would arrive before the Blood Shark and others. The communication channel was filled with the chaotic sounds of gunfire and shouts. A terrifying sound, indescribable in words, erupted from the communicator, as the extremely heavy alloy door began to deform from the inside before suddenly splitting apart, with countless twisted fragments scattering like shrapnel. The closest few Red soldiers and dozens of the Crimson Devil pirates were instantly torn to pieces. Retreat! Blood Shark shouted, leading his men through the hatch towards the assault boat. Amidst the swirling smoke and dust, a massive, suffocating crimson-black iron cavalry appeared, metal fragments flying everywhere as it descended onto the hatch platform. Rachel, it's time. Chapter 64, The Shattered Star Zone. Feng Ling. How dare you plot against me and ruin my grand plan? Rachel roared hoarsely, but unfortunately, no one could hear him in the vacuum. The enormous door was completely destroyed by him, causing an instant imbalance in internal and external air pressure, and the violent airflow swept all objects on the platform into the void. Shattered metal, twisted bodies, burning wreckage, and those caught off guard, including the Red soldiers and Crimson Devil pirates, were powerless against the immense suction. The Red soldiers were, after all, elite trained by Feng Ling, all equipped with nano-battle armor. The armor instantly activated emergency mode, and the internal temperature-regulating gel layer took effect, while the belt stored highly concentrated oxygen, barely maintaining a thread of life. In contrast, the lightly equipped Crimson Devil pirates became the most tragic sacrifices of this disaster. In the moment of exposure to vacuum, their faces twisted, lungs and eyeballs burst under extreme pressure, bodily fluids boiled and evaporated, and skin and muscle rapidly froze and necrotized in the extreme cold. In the face of the cosmos, life is truly as fragile as dust. As soon as Lu Ling stepped into the assault boat, he was met with a fierce backdraft. a violent suction suddenly grabbing hold of his body. Zavina quickly pulled him in, yet Lu Ling dared not relax for a moment. Gripping the metallic handrail at the edge of the hatch tightly, the three parked assault boats had already started, their side engines glowing a bright yellow. Everyone pay attention. Wait for the last 10 seconds. Feng Ling's command was ruthlessly decisive. The blood shark, relying on its formidable physique and the explosive power brought by its instincts, forcibly adjusted its posture in the air and crashed into the hatch of one assault boat like a cannonball, rolling in just in time. Released the tow cable. He pulled down the switch next to the hatch. Several tow cables, as thick as a wrist, shot out from the rear of the assault boat. A Chong rolled in the air and deftly grabbed one. Thin guy? The thin guy was caught by the backdraft, and the fat guy exclaimed. Seeing this, Lu Ling immediately pulled down the tow lock of this assault boat as well. At that moment, no one wanted to die. Based on instinct, the thin guy unleashed tremendous potential to seize this lifeline, and so did the others, as the Red Soldier team firmly adhered to the cables. Reel in. The winch of the tow cable instantly started, and the powerful pulling force yanked those hanging on the ropes violently towards the rear cabin of the assault boat. Buckle up. That old dog is coming. Just as the last Red Soldier was dragged inside and the hatch was about to close completely, a massive, ominous black-red iron cavalry charged in, shattering the debris torrents spewing from the gate, descending into the void of space. Its crimson single-eye locking onto the main ship where Feng Ling was located. Full speed ahead. Heading B-73, Y-455 exit. Feng Ling pushed the thruster lever to the maximum, and the side engine's bright yellow glow suddenly turned green and then deep blue, unleashing a tremendous thrust that pressed everyone firmly into their seats. Initial speed 500, 800, 1,400, 1950. Maximum speed reached. The assault boats shot out in succession, quickly breaking free from the chaotic area. Leave some for me. Rachel swatted away metal debris, the blinding blue light of the thruster creating a trail over 1,000 meters long, as he overloaded the iron cavalry engine and closed in at high speed. Minutes later, Lucius hurriedly followed with 10 assault boats rushing out from the bottom gate. This was a desperate chase in the cold depths of space, where life was fragile and no one could escape. Next cycle passage of Route B-73, Y-455 is expected to merge in 10 minutes. In the co-pilot seat, Sakura kept raising her hand to operate, reporting data in real time. The vortex of shattered stars surrounding the Blackwater Bay was constantly spinning, only opening a path during a brief window, which had forged the legend of Juang Beifa's outer realm. This was not an ordinary asteroid belt. It was a crushing machine wrapped in gravity, continuously rotating, composed of countless high-speed orbiting scrap metal, space debris, and ionizing radiation. Only the most elite daredevil helmsman had a chance to traverse this storm of death. This is the Shattered Star Whirlpool, the most dangerous natural barrier in the Blackwater Bay. It guards this lawless paradise and devours every intruder who dares to underestimate it. There's no time left. Take the small path, Feng Ling ordered in a deep voice. Watching as Rachel approached from behind, the three assault boats surged forward like flying fish, racing towards the storm gate ahead, where arcs of electricity flickered and shadows of death loomed. Several patrol boats from Blackwater Bay hurriedly veered away, while dozens of starships waiting for the route to open came to a halt. Through the layers of portholes, countless desperate individuals, merchants, and information traffickers were witnessing this frenzied scene. Are those three boats out of their minds? Look, that Iron Rider looks so familiar. Whose subordinate is this? So brave. Is he Rachel? The leader of the Red Devil. My God, who dared to provoke him? They've gone in. A gasp echoed through the crowd. Here, death is commonplace, but this reckless plunge into the universe's most perilous abyss still left them in shock. Pirates may gamble with their lives, but fear is also intangible. The three assault boats showed no signs of slowing down, plunging into that strange shadow and suddenly vanishing. Rachel followed closely, diving headfirst into the whirlpool. Is Rachel seeking mutual destruction? Everyone was stunned by this fearless pursuit. Lucius brought 10 small boats to an urgent halt at the edge of the gravitational whirlpool, bobbing like leaves. He was also taken aback by Rachel's reckless actions. In his past experiences, Rachel was not someone who easily ventured into danger. Lucius realized he had made a significant misjudgment. Inside the whirlpool, countless metal fragments swept along the gravitational trajectory, and danger and fierce battles erupted simultaneously. Here, signals were chaotic, and radar malfunctioned. It was a true realm of death. Lu Ling swallowed hard, gripping the handrails tightly. Feng Ling was far from an ordinary person. Although he was likely to survive, the feeling of dancing on the edge of a blade kept his heart taut, and the effects of the drugs began to fade, causing him to feel his strength slowly draining away. Block him. Feng Ling clearly hadn't expected Rachel to chase in, and a calm voice came through the channel. The thin man immediately crawled into the near-defense cannon entrance at the bottom, maneuvering the turret backward. With a mechanical hum, the cannon was reoriented. Boom, boom, boom. A muffled sound echoed continuously in the cramped cabin as the thin man bombarded a dense debris field in front of Rachel. The explosion created new torrents far greater than a direct artillery strike, effectively obstructing her momentum. "I'll fight you to the end," the thin man roared, feeling the power drain from his body. Even as the assault boat rolled and pitched in various directions, his eyes turned bloodshot as he fixed his gaze on Rachel behind them, the 30mm twin cannons in his hands roaring incessantly. As for the two small boats, Blood Shark and Ghost Crocodile, they had long since disappeared in the turbulence. In this swirling torrent, no one could maintain a safe distance. "Be careful." Zawina acted quickly, pulling Lu Ling back just in time. The next moment, a loud explosion erupted above the assault craft, and a metal spike suddenly thrust in, just a few centimeters away from Lu Ling's head, glinting menacingly. "Damn, here we go again." Lu Ling felt indifferent this time, without a hint of suspense. The heavy-set man immediately began cutting, while the others sprayed metal gel to fill the gaps. However, before they could finish, the assault craft tilted at a nearly vertical angle, narrowly scraping past a massive meteorite. Fortunately, the safety belts were highly resilient. Once the angle exceeded a certain degree, they immediately tightened to secure everyone firmly in their seats. The sudden loss of pressure caused oxygen to rapidly deplete inside the craft. "Attention everyone, we have entered a high-radiation turbulence zone. The electromagnetic shield is deployed. Please make timely repairs," came Sakura's voice. The psychological resilience of the fallen Goose Guard was exceptionally strong, and even in such a scene, their speech remained remarkably steady. Lu Ling gripped the handrail tightly, peering through the frost-covered gaps in the window, witnessing a hellish sight. All around him were high-speed metal fragments flying past, some as small as bullets, others as large as mountains. They collided and tore apart, emitting silent sparks, like billions of meteors engaged in an eternal dance of death in a confined space. A dark blue, ionizing radiation slithered through the debris, causing the metal surfaces to emit eerie fluorescence, a mark of continuous bombardment by high-energy particles. "Rachel is gone," the thin man shouted over the channel. "I can't find him." His strength was waning, sweat soaked his combat suit, and his vision began to blur. The overwhelming fatigue almost made him lose grip on the cold control stick. Just as he was about to collapse, the thin man bit down hard on his shoulder, pain jolting through him and forcing his mind to refocus. "Where is he?" "Where?" Rachel's iron steed had not vanished. It extinguished all light sources and lurked silently in the shadow of a high-speed metal fragment, closing in. It completely ignored the nearby Blood Shark's small boat that was rolling in the storm, maintaining its sole target on the assault craft where Lu Ling was. Fortunately, luck had always been on his side. "Did you think I would have no way to deal with you just because you ran in here?" Rachel chuckled ominously, and the engine suddenly roared to life, speeding up. "Starboard!" the thin man yelled, gripping the machine gun and unleashing a barrage. Almost as soon as he shouted, a crimson-black steel behemoth burst through the wall, accompanied by splattering molten metal and plasma sparks. Its shoulder armor had melted away, exposing the charred internal structure, with electric sparks jumping wildly. Clearly, Rachel had also been hit by several fragments, suffering significant damage. It no longer evaded or defended itself, charging forward with a self-destructive posture, expertly navigating through the flying debris along its calculated path. As it drew near, Rachel extended a massive steel hand. "No." The thin man's eyes widened in desperation as he turned the gun barrel, unleashing a torrential downpour of 30mm armor-piercing rounds toward that deadly claw. The shell struck the thick armor of the iron steed's arm, igniting a flurry of sparks, but only left a few micrometer dents on the surface, unable to halt its advance in the slightest. The pitch-black metallic giant hand, resembling the scythe of death, drew closer and closer. Just at that critical moment, Feng Ling suddenly executed a maximum roll, the hull scraping against a piece of metal debris, gliding past the edge of the giant claw. A faint spark igniting as the claw tip brushed against the hull armor. "Feng Ling!" Rachel shouted in anger, wanting to accelerate again, but abruptly hitting the brakes as a massive meteor flew past in front of him. His small green eyes instantly cleared. However, in that brief moment, Feng Ling had already run over 1,000 meters away. Seeing this, Rachel no longer hesitated, pressing buttons in the cockpit where cracks had appeared. At that moment, he seemed to see himself in his youth, so fearless and decisive. It was a fight to the death. Main weapon 1 disengaged, secondary weapon 2 disengaged, outer armor disengaged, composite armor disengaged, connector lost. In the next second, this massive humanoid weapon released a pressure relief airflow, and the thick composite armor covering the key parts of its torso and limbs instantly ejected, tumbling away, swept away by the violent gravitational vortex, disappearing into the storm. Losing the composite armor was like a person losing their muscles, revealing a rugged alloy skeleton, hydraulic pipes intertwined, energy transmission cables flickering with faint light, all laid bare in the deadly radiation of the universe. Of course, the effect of abandoning defense was immediate. Rachel's speed nearly doubled. Fengling, you truly are my good daughter. Rachel's voice came through the public channel, tinged with a calm madness. You can still turn back now. The Red Soldiers are still under your command. I can even give you part of Sarah's power. This news shocked Lu Ling. He never expected Fengling to be Rachel's daughter. Biological? He pictured Rachel's bulky figure, dismissing the thought. Suspecting it was some genetic modification technology, he had occasionally heard Greenleaf mention. There was no response on the public channel. Very well, then let's die here together today. No one gets to leave. Rachel's engine flames suddenly elongated, and his speed surged again. He no longer avoided the smaller debris, allowing them to collide with the exposed skeleton, sparking fierce bursts of fire. At that moment, he transformed into a burning meteor, launching into a final charge of death without regard for anything else. Chapter 65. Frostflower in the void. 100 kilometers from the outer edge of the shattered star zone, a dormant jump signal anchor suddenly illuminated, energy patterns glowing intensely, converging at the top of the anchor's launcher, sending out subtle spatial ripples. About 2 minutes later, the spatial ripples seemed to receive an invisible pull, torn apart by a colossal force, followed by a blinding white light bursting forth as a sleek, over 270-meter-long black starship emerged from the space jump. Night Orchid has arrived. As it fully materialized from the jump state, the massive shadow of its hull obscured the signal anchor. The most striking feature is the two sides of the bow. Painted with blooming blood roses, their petals exotic and flamboyant, but at the center are silver-white skulls. Many of the gun ports still have remnants of energy that have not fully dissipated, clearly indicating that a battle has just taken place. On the bridge, the transition is complete, and the ship has arrived at the designated coordinates. The navigator's voice is steady. The entire ship's systems are undergoing self-check. Expected to finish tunneling in 40 seconds, reports the technician. Backup energy is online, and the reactor output is stable, comes the voice of Vance from communications. Listening to the reports below, the captain, Lien, speaks coolly, unfolding a partial star map, scanning all active signals around the periphery of the debris belt, prioritizing the tracking of the leader's encrypted identifier. Understood. The holographic star map rapidly coalesces in the center of the bridge, magnifying the details of the complex and dangerous airspace around the debris whirlpool. Countless points of light representing fragments, radiation, and gravitational anomalies flicker wildly, nearly overwhelming everything. A high-energy reaction is detected, identified as cavalry, and after matching the database for a few seconds, the radar officer exclaims, "It's the Great Demon." The Great Demon, a unique name given by Rachel to her cavalry, is well known in the pirate circles of the Zhuangbai Autonomous Region. It is maneuvering at high speed within the whirlpool, with energy readings off the charts. Lien's gaze instantly locks onto the scarlet point on the star map that is charging forward madly, designating the area for a deep focus scan. Found it. In front of the radar's scarlet point, there are 3 green friendly signals, which are the locations of Fengling and Lu Ling, with the 2 signals on the left and right being relatively far off, while Rachel is relentlessly pursuing the middle friendly signal. Calculate its trajectory and speed. Her voice remains steady, but her fingers have already pulled up another interface on the console. Maneuver engineering team, prepare, I'm going to engage. The calculation is complete, with an estimated effective interception time of 64 seconds. The tactical officer quickly responds, indicating that within 64 seconds, Rachel will definitely be able to catch up to Fengling. Meanwhile, Fengling is still at least several dozen kilometers from the exit of the debris whirlpool and cannot advance at full speed in the current currents. Lien has already stood up. How long since disengagement? The tactical officer's fingers fly over the controls, and countless pieces of information rush by. About 2 minutes and 31 seconds. All ships maintain silence. Lien quickly turns and leaves the bridge. It is still during the tunneling effect, so the corridor is quite dim, aside from the bridge having backup energy. Other areas do not, and the anti-gravity system is also not activated. She directly activates the mini-jet system of her spacesuit and flies toward the hangar. Night Orchid. Main hangar. The lighting is dim, filled with the low hum of hydraulic lines and the faint scent of low-temperature coolant. A streamlined cavalry unit, presenting a cold moon-white color, stands silently on the central fixture, Frostflower. It is not as menacing and heavy as Rachel's cavalry. Overall, it appears more elongated, with armor as smooth as a mirror. Sharp wing-like structures on the outer sides of its arms, and its head sensor shaped like a double-edged eye, currently dim and lifeless. The engineering team is hurriedly making final adjustments. Lotus stepped on the hook lock, and the armor of Frostflower opened, revealing a precision-engineered narrow cockpit. As her body gracefully slid inside, the armor quickly closed. The cockpit lights illuminated, casting a soft white glow that revealed a panoramic view of the hangar. She swiftly conducted a final self-check, disconnected the cables, and adjusted to attack posture. Below, an engineer in a reflective vest waved a signal light, guiding Frostflower toward the launch exit. Nuclear fusion has one advantage. It is unaffected by spatial tunneling effects. Whenever tunneling or strong electromagnetic pulse effects occur, all electronic components on the ship go offline. Critical facilities are often directly connected to the reactor, providing energy directly. The passage behind her sealed shut, and rows of yellow track lights extended to the end. The Godon mine slid open just in time, revealing the deep starry expanse outside. Clear the track. Frostflower launched. Lotus pushed the engine to its maximum, and the main thruster nozzle of the cold moon-white iron steed lit up with a ghostly blue glow, erupting suddenly. Rushing toward the void like photon wings, its speed astonishing as it plunged into the debris star vortex without hesitation. Inside the assault boat, alarm lights flashed, and external friction accompanied the constant dull thuds. Lu Ling had no idea when this nightmarish journey would end. Suddenly, the nearby technician, who was repairing a metal seam, blacked out and fell asleep. It was a side effect. As the medication wore off, Lu Ling felt his body grow incredibly heavy. He exerted his last bit of strength to pull the technician back into his seat. The thin guy hadn't come up, and the counterattack artillery had long ceased. Each violent jolt of the boat felt like a heavy hammer striking his frail body, making his vision blur and his stomach churn. Lu Ling looked at Zavina, who was still holding on. She played a crucial role in carving a bloody path out of Blackwater Bay. He understood even more that Fengling had been using everyone's lives to trade for Rachel's death from the very beginning, including her own. Zavina squeezed his hand. Hold on. Inside the cockpit, Fengling remained calm, skillfully maneuvering the assault boat through the gaps of death. Each seemingly perilous maneuver was, in fact, an absolute control of the crisis. Over the years, she had traversed this narrow path at least hundreds of times. Beside her, Sakura continuously reported data. The exit coordinates locked in, the gravitational turbulence area marked, and Rachel was 3,640 meters from their position, expected to make contact in 5 seconds. The so-called contact was nothing more than a mutual destruction. Fengling's gaze swept across the coordinate point on the screen that represented a path to survival, then glanced back at the approaching crimson-black iron steed. Her red lips parted slightly. We can survive. Inside the cockpit of the Great Demon, Rachel, however, displayed a chilling calmness. Large beads of sweat trickled down his forehead, his breathing rate very slow. His hefty hands moved with remarkable agility, calculating the gaps in the debris flow and the relative distance to the assault boat, using his maneuvering advantage to close the distance by hundreds of meters every second. For seconds, Sakura's voice rang out again. Rachel saw Fengling attempting to use a massive piece of metal debris ahead for a final evasion, even predicting the angle she might choose to enter. His fingers twitched, and the enormous body of the Iron Rider adjusted its charging posture at an extremely subtle angle. The distance closed in an instant. 3 seconds, 1,894 meters. Rachel's eyes reflected the bluish glow of the rear thrusters of the assault boat ahead. 2 seconds, 571 meters. The roar of the engine reached a peak in the cockpit, deafening. Rachel leaned slightly forward, as if pouring all his will, all his madness, and all his resentment into this final impact. In those years, he had also been called a madman by countless villains. Here it comes, Sakura shouted. A streak of moonlight white energy, tearing through the turbulence, fiercely cut between him and his prey. It was Lien. She didn't even pause for a moment. The shield components instantly unfolded, and almost simultaneously, Rachel's battered steel claw, in a frenzied act of mutual destruction, bit down hard. Boom. The shockwave spread out, and Lien used the momentum to retreat swiftly, a grappling hook shooting out from the Frost Blossom's wrist, accurately catching a meteorite that was speeding by. The immense pulling force yanked her off course, and at the same time, she swung her right arm, using the shield as a throwing weapon, hurling it with all her might. The shield transformed into a spinning bluish wheel, not striking the cockpit directly, but calculating the angle to smash down on the shoulder joint of the Great Demon. The deafening sound of tearing metal erupted in Rachel's cockpit. The already damaged armor could no longer withstand such a heavy blow. The shield was wedged in, locking the right arm's transmission structure of the Iron Rider. No. The last breath Rachel had been holding shattered, his eyes filled with disbelief and fury. In that moment of daze, the meteorite had taken him thousands of meters away into the depths of the turbulence. Meanwhile, Lien, using the rebound force of the grappling hook and precise control of the thrusters, narrowly avoided a massive rock that was hurtling toward her. It's over. Without any hesitation, Lien controlled the Frost Blossom to turn, the thrusters spitting out bluish flames, quickly chasing after the assault boat that was still jolting in the storm. Chapter 66. Battle of Blackwater Bay. On the bridge of the flagship, the Crimson Devil, Lady Sarah sat in the captain's seat. her face illuminated by the flames outside the window, casting half of her face in an eerie pallor, her cold pupils flickering with uncertainty, reflecting the chaos and oppressive panic within the bridge. The onslaught of the Black Sail fleet was like a storm and a downpour. The formation of the Crimson Devil's fleet had been torn open in several places, with multiple escort ships disintegrating in flames, fireworks blooming everywhere. The armor of Deck 7. Zone 4 has been breached. The fire is spreading to the D3 corridor. All members of the second damage control team are deceased. Urgent support needed. Lord Hart has been slain by Yelena. The Iron Riders of the Black Sail have breached the close defense zone. The wildfire has been sunk. Last repeat. The wildfire has been sunk. The continuous battle reports rang like funeral bells, making Lady Sarah's face grow even colder. The damage control officer's voice trembled with barely concealed fear. The communication channel filled with desperate screams and the crackling of static. The consortium is not adept at direct confrontations, and the defenses she meticulously built turned out to be so fragile and desperate in front of the band of pirates. She initially thought that Feng Ling was merely cornered, seeking a permit to purchase the Colossi acceleration track in Blackwater Bay, and then planning to leave Zhuangbai at the right moment. However, she never expected that Feng Ling would plunge headlong into the trap she had carefully woven. Mrs. Suraf was utterly perplexed about what methods Feng Ling had employed to make the unruly pirates fight so desperately. After all, no matter how poor the consortium's combat capability was, they could still take a bite out of the pirates. A mix of anger from being fooled and a sense of helpless fatigue intertwined in Mrs. Suraf's mind. She slightly tilted her head, her gaze falling on the soft, handsome young adjutant beside her, who had been silently standing by. He lowered his eyes obediently, and the small bell on the leather collar around his neck rang softly and clearly amidst the violent vibrations of the ship, creating an eerie contrast in the death-laden bridge. Mrs. Suraf extended her delicate hand, adorned with black lace gloves, and gently lifted the adjutant's chin with her fingertip. Her action carried an undeniable sense of control, and her eyes revealed an almost pathological affection. However, this affection was not directed towards a person, but rather towards a pet. After Justin was reassigned, this was the new amusement she had so painstakingly sought. My little dog, go stop Elena with the remaining knights. Make sure to bite her to death. The beautiful adjutant bowed deeply, his voice humble. As you command, my lady. I will wash away your shame with her blood. Before he could finish his last words, a sudden change occurred. In the depths of his humble, lowered gaze, a venomous ferocity erupted in an instant. His hand, hidden in his sleeve, shot out like lightning, revealing a dagger that vibrated at supersonic speed, screaming and buzzing as it aimed directly at Mrs. Suraf's heart. His movements were incredibly swift, and the angle was cunning, clearly premeditated. Moreover, the timing was perfect, just as the Mandragora was violently shaking, causing panic among the crew, and at the moment when Mrs. Suraf had just given an order, her physical defenses were at their most relaxed and vulnerable. This opportunity could not be missed. You, old man, Mrs. Suraf shouted sharply, her pupils suddenly contracting. But after all, she was an old pirate who had weathered countless storms, and at the last moment, she abruptly shifted her direction. The dagger failed to pierce her heart, but instead plunged deeply into Mrs. Suraf's left shoulder. Amidst the supersonic vibrations, the nanolining flickered twice, but ultimately failed to hold up and shattered completely. Ah! Mrs. Suraf screamed in horror, her face turning pale with fright. Blood gushed from her shoulder, staining her deep purple gown. The handsome adjutant remained expressionless, immediately withdrawing his hand, the blade trembling as he aimed once more at Mrs. Suraf's heart. However, at that moment, a lightsaber erupted from the adjutant's chest, causing his pupils and attacking motion to freeze for a brief instant. The dagger lost its force before it could breach Mrs. Suraf's nanolining. The body collapsed to the ground, revealing the radar officer standing behind him. The radar officer was the closest position to the captain, apart from the adjutant. His appearance was no worse than that of the aide, or rather, most of the individuals on the bridge were favored male companions cultivated by Sarah, each with their own characteristics. At any given time, whoever was in favor would be summoned by Sarah for training. You did well, she said, rising to her feet, her previously tense heart slowly easing. The radar officer showed a humble smile, saying, I would never allow the lady to come to any harm. Lady Sarah glanced at the aide on the ground, where a glowing blade had burned a hole in his chest, instantly vaporizing flesh and blood, leaving behind a gaze filled with resentment and fury, the light gradually dimming. She kicked aside the aide's arm to examine it, noticing that the entire arm had been transformed into a bionic structure, with a vibrating dagger and high-speed motor implanted in the wrist. Remove it, she commanded. The radar officer immediately raised the glowing blade and cut off the vibrating dagger. At that moment, the chief medical officer rushed over to tend to her wounds. Lady Sarah endured the pain, took the dagger, and slowly crouched down. Do you think this will kill me? Her voice was hoarse as she drew the dagger and viciously slashed the aide's face. What a pity for you. In the void of space, the mandala's close defense zone was silent, yet the explosive fire and flying metal debris composed the wildest symphony of death. Yelena piloted her Blood Rose Iron Cavalry, like the most lethal thorny rose on the battlefield, performing a magnificent dance of harvest amidst the cannon fire. Behind her, 7 black-sailed Iron Cavalry, each painted differently and emanating a fierce aura, formed a spearhead formation, disregarding the scattered, intercepting fire around them, targeting the mandala 10 kilometers ahead. In just 2 to 3 seconds, they could pull Sarah out of her shell. Yelena's maneuvers were precise and wild. Her weapon was deadly art. The magnetic whip of her left arm lashed out like a living creature, carrying a pale electric arc, accurately wrapping around the rear engine of an assault boat attempting to intercept. With a sudden yank, the assault boat's engine was instantly torn apart, spinning and crashing into its allies, triggering a chain explosion. Ahead, 3 Crimson Devil Iron Cavalry stood in the path of the charge, continuously unleashing dense, intercepting fire in an attempt to block the passage. A bunch of useless dogs. Yelena smirked disdainfully. She forcefully pushed the thrust lever, and the main propulsion array behind the Blood Rose erupted with a blinding white light. The dark pink body abruptly breaking away from the spearhead formation and charging straight into the barrage. Cover the leader. Came the shouts from the black-sailed Iron Cavalry over the channel, and the remaining 7 Iron Cavalry accelerated. Yelena paid no heed to the support behind her. All her focus was locked onto the 3 blocking wild dogs. In an instant, they had traveled 6,000 meters, seeking death. The driver of the leading Crimson Devil Iron Cavalry opened the shoulder missile bay, and several missiles shot out with a supersonic roar, trailing flames. Yelena swiftly drew her rifle and fired precise shots, igniting a series of fireballs. So fast, before the Crimson Devil Iron Cavalry could react, Yelena had burst through the flames. Her left arm's magnetic whip lashing out once more, wrapping around the leg of one Iron Cavalry like a venomous snake. Get down. Yelena laughed cruelly as the Blood Rose's engine roared, yanking hard. That Iron Cavalry was forcibly dragged out of formation, losing its balance and crashing into a massive floating wreckage, the explosion engulfing it in flames. The remaining 2 armored units were terrified and attempted to distance themselves for concentrated fire. But would Yelena, the madwoman, give them a chance? The Blood Rose accelerated instead of slowing down, faster than lightning, instantly cutting between the 2 armored units. With a high-frequency hum, her cutting blade slashed upward with great force toward the cockpit of the unit in the middle. No. The driver had no time to react and let out a desperate scream. The high-frequency cutting edge sliced through the armor and internal structure as easily as a hot knife through butter, splitting it in 2. A fireball exploded, intensifying the killing intent in Yelena's eyes. Ha ha ha, a bunch of insignificant fish. The last driver, terrified, turned to flee but was caught and brutally dismembered by Yelena. In the blink of an eye, the 3 obstructing armored units were reduced to ashes. Yelena controlled the Blood Rose to stabilize amidst the explosion's aftermath, the eerie blue light on the cutting blade slowly extinguishing as the magnetic whip retracted into her arm. At this moment, her subordinates finally arrived. The obstacles were cleared. She raised her blade, pointing at the nearby mandala, announcing that whoever killed Sarah would be rewarded with 1,000,000 star coins. Kill. Aya. The Black Sail Princess's words always held weight, igniting the ferocity of all the Black Sail armored units. The explosive flames flickered across the surface of the mandala. They only needed 2 more minutes to strip away Sarah's outer layer and reach her body. Meanwhile, on the Black Sail fleet, aboard the Black Edge. After Yelena led the charge with her armored units, the Warden, the masked man, took over command. His mask was smooth and pure white, cold, with no discernible features. He watched as Yelena forcefully breached the Red Devil's armored defense line, creating an unprecedented opportunity for the entire fleet. Sarah, the second in command of the Red Devil, was about to be taken down by the Black Sail. At that moment, the momentum of the Black Sail pirates would surely reach new heights. Now, the entire fleet's attack focus was involuntarily drawn and concentrated on the mandala. They only needed one final strike. Report. 3 enemy ships of the Red Devil approaching rapidly at a distance of 1,650 kilometers from our fleet in the direction B-74, Y-493. 1 destroyer unit and 2 frigate units. Expected to enter cruise missile range in 10 seconds. Report. The enemy ships Blood-Pact, Iron Maiden, and Gallows are maneuvering toward our fleet. Distance 177 kilometers. The Warden analyzed the tactical map, noting that while the Red Devil had been heavily damaged by their cruise missiles, its main forces were not entirely destroyed, and 6 warships were still fiercely resisting. Prioritize concentrated fire on the Red Devil's main forces. Report. Jump signal detected. Number unknown. Landing point located 200 kilometers on our fleet's flank. The radar officer, focused, shouted, "It's here." In the void, 30 kilometers from the mandala, 3 pitch-black warships suddenly appeared from a jump. The source matches the database. The Great Demon Cruiser, the Nightmare Destroyer, the Shadow Destroyer. Is that Rachel? The warden's voice was low. Reinforcements? As a cruiser, its deck size is much larger than that of the Night Orchid. With over 2,000 pirate raiders pouring in from more than 80 assault boats, quickly rushing to the main battlefield for boarding combat. Faced with the advanced electronic countermeasures of the Black Sail pirates, they wisely refrained from deploying drones for coordination. On the other side, in the core hangar, only the low hum of hydraulic systems and the buzzing of energy flow could be heard. The heavy armored door slowly slid open, revealing a heavy iron steed, entirely in a muted gray, with lines exuding a sense of violent aesthetics, silently standing on the rail track. It bore no flashy paintwork, just the letters ML60 printed on its shoulder. This iron steed was a high-value trophy successfully captured during the Blood Shark's infiltration of the White Carp 7746, which had caused considerable damage. Rachel did not liquidate it, but secretly entrusted it to her engineers for adaptive modifications. A burly man climbed aboard and settled into the cockpit. He wasn't wearing a complex full-body combat suit. Instead, he simply secured a specially made neural connection helmet onto his bald head. Thick cables extended from the helmet's interface, directly piercing into the reinforced neural port at the back of his neck. This was necessary, as the engineers of the Red Devil faction were not yet skilled enough to crack the native OS system. Therefore, a neural control module was implanted to bypass the security protocols, successfully activating this experimental new iron steed. Pirates were always adept at such tasks. The man exhaled deeply, starting the power-up sequence and initiating the self-check program. The pain from the neural connection mechanism was unbearable for most. His name was Wanka, the leader of the Mamba, the head of the fortress, and the third of the Red Devils, second only to Sarah. Unlike Fengling, Wanka operated very discreetly and never participated in the internal power struggles of the Red Devils. As the cockpit merged, the dual diamond-shaped sensors on the ML60's head suddenly lit up with a blue glow, and the massive thrusters on its back began charging, humming ominously. The connected cables snapped with a loud bang, and the ejection port behind began to close. The ejection channel was now clear. A message came from the control tower. "Sir Wanka, you may launch." Wanka did not respond. At that moment, he had become one with this killing machine, and a faint blue light emanated from the depths of his pupils. In the next moment, the main thruster array behind the ML60 unleashed a torrent of plasma, propelling the massive body with tremendous force, shooting out like a gray streak into the silent, yet chaotic battlefield. His target was singular, Yelena. Chapter 67. Battle Axe and Rose. Wanka piloted the ML60 at an incredible speed, far surpassing the cognitive limits of conventional heavy armored steeds, tearing through the void and arriving silently. At this moment, the 7 Black Sail armored vehicles that were frantically attacking the mandala had not even fully turned around before Wanka had already arrived. What is that? A new enemy aircraft. Caution. Target approaching at high speed. Evade. Evade. The Black Sail armored pirates were uncertain, and 2 of them reacted the fastest, immediately abandoning their attack. Their shoulder missile bays opened, and dozens of short-range combat missiles, trailing flames, surged towards the gray lightning. Oh, there are even small fry daring to come? Meanwhile, Yelena maneuvered the blood rose to fly out from the belly of the mandala, just in time to witness the scene. She licked her lips, filled with bloodthirsty excitement as she rushed forward. Wanka's gaze remained completely still, and he did not make any significant maneuvers. With a press of his finger, dozens of floating cannons launched from the weapon slots on his back, forming an interception array around him. Countless rapid beams covered the Black Sail cavalry position, and all incoming missiles were precisely detonated mid-flight, turning into a series of small fireballs. In the next moment, the ML60 had already cut into the formation of the Black Sail cavalry. The infinitely vast universe felt so narrow at this moment. Both sides engaged in fierce combat at speeds of hundreds to thousands of meters per second. Wanka's attack style was extremely brutal. He pulled out 2 spear axes from behind and joined them to form a long-handled weapon. With the roar of the engine, he locked onto the nearest Black Sail cavalry unit and charged straight at it. The unit barely managed to block, only to be pierced by the swift and ruthless thrust. The explosion immediately engulfed both combatants, but Wanka's ML60 remained unscathed, as its gray figure burst through the flames, charging toward another cavalry unit. So strong. Create distance. Long-range attrition. Too fast. Failed to capture. It's coming for me. Help me, help me. On the bridge of the mandala, Lady Sarah sighed in relief upon seeing Wanka approach, her tense jawline softening slightly. The wound on her shoulder had been treated urgently and was now nearly healed. The bloodstains on her dark, purple, luxurious gown spread out like a haunting flower from the other side. Just moments ago, she had almost thought she would die right there. At that moment, The voice of the communications officer, tinged with a hint of panic, broke in. Madam, Lord Rachel's signal has disappeared deep within the star fragment whirlpool. Communication is cut off. Lady Sarah shifted her gaze from the fierce battle screen to the area of the star fragment whirlpool. Rachel, how many more things are you hiding from me? Her eyes were complex. Despite being the second in command of the Red Devil and the head of the consortium, many core secrets were not shared with her by Rachel, who often relied more on Lucius. The star fragment whirlpool was so dangerous. No one understood that man better than she did, risking great death to pursue Fengling. Send the Mamba to assist. Sarah ordered. Madam, the Mamba's fleet is about to complete the encirclement of the Black Sail pirates. Should we change his maneuvering route now? The tactical advisor questioned. Their position held considerable power during wartime, responsible for various minor commands, such as which target to focus fire on or fleet movements. The fleet commander was mainly responsible for overall strategy. Sarah was not angry at the question. She understood the implications of the decision. Outside the porthole, another Black Sail cavalry unit exploded, and its gray body skimmed past, always guarding in front of the mandala, which further solidified her resolve. The current Red Devil could not leave Rachel yet. Reinforcements have arrived. Execute the orders. The tactical advisor said nothing more, not even taking the time to wipe the beads of sweat from his forehead, quickly relaying the orders to the Mamba. The command left him feeling anxious and bewildered. Once Wonka was defeated by Yelena, the mandala would inevitably be destroyed as well. At this moment, however, the Mamba, upon receiving the order, was overjoyed and quickly commanded the fleet to change course, advancing at a speed far exceeding the encircled Black Sail towards the shattered star zone. The battle was intense, and aside from themselves, no one noticed or cared. Wonka pulled the long axe from the cockpit of the Black Sail, blood floating like marbles in the vacuum. Opposite him, a sleek and elegant Iron Knight quietly watched. The 18-meter-tall machine had smooth, graceful lines, with dark red energy conduits flowing at every seam of the armor plates. Its surface was painted in a matte black and deep red gradient, revealing a faint rose pattern under the glow of the thrusters. The chest armor tapered into an inverted triangle, and the layered waist armor swayed gently like a girl's skirt with the movements of the machine, while the knees and elbows were adorned with gilded rose reliefs, shimmering faintly in space. It was Yelena's blood rose. The remaining 3 Black Sail Iron Knights quickly flew behind her, looking at the gray machine with fear. So brutal, so powerful. You all go deal with the other small fry. Seize Sarah Yelena. She issued the command calmly. The 3 Black Sail Iron Knights, as if granted amnesty, frantically harvested the nearby small boats, trying to suppress their fear. Now, only the 2 remained in this airspace. Tell me, where did this machine come from? Yelena always asked inappropriate questions at the most untimely moments, fully aware that the other party would not respond. TSK, small fry. Yelena initiated the attack first. Her tail flame bursting forth as the machine instantly transformed into a dark red afterimage. The body tilted, and her left arm's magnetic whip, like a venomous snake with a pale electric arc, struck towards the ML-60's head. Wonka did not dodge. Instead, he reached out and grabbed the magnetic whip, allowing the electromagnetic pulse to hit him. Arrogant, Yelena exclaimed, increasing the output power of the magnetic whip. This weapon was custom-made by her. The powerful current could destroy any electronic component. The ML-60's engine counterthrusted, maintaining a steady stance, and began to twist the direction of the magnetic whip. The high-speed maneuver of the blood rose suddenly stalled, and the immense force triggered a red alert inside the cockpit. What is this? Left arm structure damaged. Control of weapon slot 2 abnormal. At the same time, Yelena was also tightly bound by the recoil, the safety belt in the cockpit outlining her taut figure, and immediately severed the second weapon. Such powerful engine output. Wait, why does this technique feel somewhat familiar? Yelena licked her dry lips, a flush appearing on her face, her excitement growing in her eyes. Wonka discarded the magnetic whip and initiated an attack. The 2 machines constantly collided in space, separating and re-engaging, with floating cannons and electromagnetic rifle beams flying everywhere. You are Wonka. After several rounds, Yelena finally grasped the strategy of the gray machine. They collided again, and she barely blocked the battle axe with her ship-slicing sword. The cockpit shaking violently as several inertia units exceeded their load and exploded. Yelena could even smell the burnt odor. Once the inertia unit lost too much power, every close combat encounter would become a torment, until someone was thrown out of the cockpit. No way. The machine driven by Wonka far surpassed her blood rose in terms of reactor output and speed. This was definitely not a machine that pirates could possess. Being pressed and beaten made Yelena very unhappy. She didn't understand where Rachel got so many opportunities, not to mention the treasures of the Silverlight family. Now she had come up with such advanced iron steeds. Given time, it would surely become a major headache for all the pirates of Wanbei. With Wonka around, it seemed there would be no chance to kill Sarah. Damn mask. I can't hold on here any longer. I've said long ago that we need naval gun support to take down Sarah. What are you doing? Yelena prepared to retreat and urgently contacted the Black Sail fleet. Ziz. The frequencies seemed to be interfered with. The electronic warfare equipment on the Great Devil was also impressive, and both sides were engaged in fierce electronic countermeasures. It took several seconds before the warden's voice came through. Hang in there a bit longer. Their Iron Maiden has already been sunk, and the gallows are almost ready. I can't hold on. Hold on. The communication was ruthlessly cut off. You damn mask. Everyone, retreat. Yelena broke free from Wonka's battle axe, began to channel all energy to the engine, and immediately entered overload mode, flying towards the Black Sail fleet's position. However, after flying several thousand meters, there was still no response on the channel. She sighed, not looking back. Meanwhile, Wonka did not pursue. Instead, he chose to maximize his gains. The performance of the ML-60 far exceeded that of the Black Sail's miscellaneous machines, catching up with the last 3 Black Sail iron steeds and tearing them apart one by one, just as Yelena had arrived. Chapter 68. Distant and vast in the outer area of Blackwater Bay, in the Shattered Star Zone, the thick armor, 15 meters deep, of the Night Orchid slowly opened, revealing the deep starry sky. 3 assault boats, as if returning from hell, crashed onto the deck, enveloped in black smoke and flames, leaving 3 long sparks and dark scratches. The pirates, donned in orange engineering exoskeletons, were well-trained and had already prepared for rescue measures. High-pressure cooling liquid sprayed down like a waterfall, emitting a hissing sound of vaporization. With white mist rising, engineering team, push the cooling machine over. Aim at the engine of boat number 3. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Damn it. It's going to explode. The side of boat number 2 has been pierced by debris. Give me the cutting machine. Bloodshark kicked open the tailgate of the assault boat, cursed, and then suddenly collapsed onto the cold floor, falling asleep. His eyes were tightly closed, his complexion pale, and dried blood still lingered at the corners of his mouth. Boss. Several red-clad pirates rushed over to check. As they touched him, they found his muscles stiff as iron, but his temperature was frighteningly high. Looking inside the cabin, they were horrified to find that everyone in the assault boat had collapsed in their seats. 2 members of the falling Goose Guard slowly emerged from the cockpit. They were the personal guards of Feng Ling, their will as hard as steel, but at this moment, they could only barely support themselves against the wall. Fainting at the edges. They hadn't used X instincts, but they had used other stamina-draining potions. Otherwise, they would have died in the Shattered Star Vortex long ago. Medical team. Call the chief medical officer. An emergency has occurred, with multiple individuals experiencing adverse reactions to an unknown substance. The clinical responses are severe, and immediate support is needed. Is the leader not online? The medical team leader's face turned pale instantly. The chief medical officer is actually unreachable at such a critical moment. He had seen the leader online when boarding. Of course, the complexities of the situation are beyond the grasp of a mere medical team leader. The first boat, pursued by Rachel, is in the worst condition, with nearly half of its armor stripped away, exposing its skeleton, riddled with holes and filled with metallic foam. The rear hatch is severely deformed, and 2 burly pirates have taken out solvents and a supersonic chainsaw to begin cutting, with no sound in the vacuum, only the sparks flying continuously. The heavy armored deck of the Night Orchid began to close, and pipes above started to release high concentrations of oxygen. Bang! The hatch was forcibly opened by a pirate with a chainsaw, and the thick smell of blood and a pungent, sour odor instantly poured out. The scene inside is gruesome. Lu Ling has completely fallen into a coma, and when Shiwena sees the external light shining in, she closes her eyes and falls into a deep sleep as well. Yet one hand still tightly grips the weapon module. Shiwena, Chin, Gira, and others hurriedly ran over to lift the 2 out. The fat man and other surviving pirates are all, without exception, in a deep coma or a painful semi-conscious state, with no sounds at all. In the front cockpit, Feng Ling manually opened the hatch, supporting Ying to step out amidst the astonished gazes of everyone. Her face only appeared slightly pale, but a cold glint flickered in her narrow phoenix eyes. The 2 of them are the only 2 conscious individuals among the more than 30 survivors from the 3 assault boats. Lien hurried over, took Ying from Feng Ling's hands, and called for a drone stretcher to send them to the medical room. The previous medical team leader rushed over to report. Leader, these brothers have extremely unstable vital signs, with muscle tissue showing extensive dissolution tendencies. They need a large amount of cell repair fluid, and we haven't yet identified which substance caused the adverse reactions. We may need to call for a small amount of carbon-based material. Understood. Prioritize the rescue of the chief mechanic. Feng Ling's command carried a hint of barely noticeable fatigue. Carbon-based material, an extremely precious resource of original cell-type strategic medicine, is worth tens of thousands of star coins per milligram in the black market of Blackwater Bay. For all carbon-based life forms, as long as they have enough carbon-based material, They can easily regenerate nerves, reattach severed limbs, and even heal eyes, hearts, and brains, curing any physical injury. After Feng Ling made all the arrangements, she headed to the bridge with Lian. How is the situation outside? Lian immediately replied. The Black Sail has sunk 4 ships of the Sarah, but Wanka has suddenly come to support. The warden sent a message indicating that the Black Sail will retreat from the battlefield in 10 minutes. A smart person. Feng Ling rarely praises anyone. She instructed him that this operation is over and to retreat immediately. The Zhuangbei Navy will not miss this opportunity to wipe them out. Understood. The bridge hatch opened, and Feng Ling stepped forward to sit in the captain's seat, placing her hands on the porcelain-textured main control panel on either side. Report. 3 enemy ships are maneuvering towards us, 342 kilometers away, and are about to enter range, the radar officer reported at all times. No need to pay attention. Navigation coordinates C26, Y70, beacon activation SY0909. Feng Ling coldly ordered to authorize on the armrest panel. Yes, guiding coordinates are being completed, status available. The navigator slowly pushed the lever to the highest point. The transition engine was preparing, calibrating the ship's posture, with a current stability coefficient of 0.66. Expected to enter transition mode in 42 seconds. Feng Ling took a deep breath, thinking of Lu Ling. She knew that using him as bait multiple times in Blackwater Bay would surely make Lu Ling resent her. And he might never sincerely serve the Red Army or her again. Looking at the double-digit countdown, Feng Ling suddenly felt a bit reluctant. This ship had truly become a masterpiece in his hands. There probably wasn't a faster ship in the entire empire than the Night Orchid. 321. The navigator shouted loudly. Transition engine activated. Waves rippled through space, accompanied by a slight tremor of the Night Orchid. After a blinding flash, it transformed into a streak of light and vanished from sight. Outer main battlefield of Black Sail. On the bridge of the Black Edge destroyer, the captain glanced at the tactical star map. On it, multiple red dots representing the Red Devil fleet were dimming. The signals from Bloodpact, Iron Maiden, and Gallows had completely disappeared. This marked an unprecedented glorious achievement for Black Sail against the Red Devils. He fought this battle with great satisfaction. Even if the Great Devil cruiser entered now, it would be too late, and stabilizing the formation would be difficult. Report. It's a secret communication from the Red Army. Switch. On the large screen, there was only one sentence. The informant has betrayed us. Retreat immediately. The Zhuangbai Navy will arrive in 5 minutes. The captain suddenly stood up, a hint of panic escaping from behind his white mask. What the hell? 5 minutes? Are you kidding me? There's not even enough time to leave the battlefield. Without time to think, he forced himself to calm down as his heart began to race. All fleet, listen up, immediately retreat from the battlefield. Navigation coordinates B45, Y66. Lock on beacon 3. Wait, Her Highness the Princess hasn't returned to the ship yet. The fleet channel immediately transmitted the urgent question from the deputy of the Black Sail Princess. Fine, you wait for her yourself. Be careful not to get caught. The captain coldly ended the communication. Those who knew him understood that he loved to hang up on people. The navigator immediately pulled the lever to the highest position, and the transition engine array at the rear of the Black Edge began to spew out bluish flames, the emitted light creating ripples in the cosmic space. The transition engine was preparing, calibrating the ship's posture, with a current stability coefficient of 0.64, medium risk. Expected to enter transition mode in 342 seconds. The navigator's voice was tinged with tension. We should make it in time. The captain kept his eyes fixed on the countdown. As for saving Yelena, it wasn't that he wouldn't, but the situation didn't allow it. The elders of Black Sail would understand his explanation. Meanwhile, on the Mandala's bridge, Lady Sarah also received the informant's intelligence. 5 minutes. She frowned. On the tactical sand table, the Black Sail fleet was retracting, appearing to be in a hurried escape. It was previously mentioned that there would be no possibility of mediation once the Red Devil and Black Sail had clashed. However, there is one situation that can absolutely lead to a temporary ceasefire between the two parties. To put it another way, it's like two dogs fighting, at this moment. An adult arrives with a stick to separate them. The entire fleet is ordered to immediately disengage from the battlefield, heading towards coordinates D24, Y27, and activating Beacon 17. Lady Sarah connected to Wanka's communication, where a silent, bald, burly man appeared on one side. Do you have enough time? Wanka's background was shaking, seemingly just returning to the hangar deck. But Wanka's voice was brief and seemed somewhat wooden. Lady Sarah nodded, and at that moment she saw Yelena still in space, racing desperately towards the mothership. Yelena was ruthless and bloodthirsty, and perhaps no more than a handful could rival her among the Red Devils. However, conversely, Yelena also had a fatal weakness. She was far detached from the fleet. The distance between them spanned hundreds of kilometers, and it would take at least 6 minutes to fly back. Yelena, oh Yelena, you just killed so joyfully. Did you know today would come? Lady Sarah's eyes revealed deep resentment and a sense of vindictive satisfaction as she deployed reconnaissance drones from the hangar, ensuring she would remain there forever. The universe was desolate and boundless, dark and profound. After the flames of war ceased, neither side's warships were visible. One of the Blood Rose's engines was out of commission, emitting thick smoke. Inside the cockpit, Yelena had already pushed the output power to the maximum, discarding all excess weight, even throwing away the broken ship's gun that still had a bullet left. All for speed. Faster. At this moment, Yelena's icy blue pupils no longer held the arrogance from before. Through her tactical helmet, one could see the fine beads of sweat trickling down her prominent nose, her lips tightly sealed. Attention. Fuel tank number 3 is leaking, performing self-check. Warning. Assembly failure in thruster number 2. Warning. Abnormal readings from the cooling valve of thruster number 3. Sometimes, the more anxious one becomes, the more things go awry. Yelena could hear her heart pounding. Every second ticking by. 5 minutes passed in the blink of an eye, and the Black Sail Princess appeared in her line of sight. Just as the remaining warships of Black Sail transformed into streaks of light and departed, the despair and anxiety left behind began to spread. But she had no time to dwell on it, desperately controlling the beloved craft weighing dozens of tons. The control stick felt incredibly heavy. The speed of the Blood Rose visibly slowed down, finally halting in the void 10 kilometers from the Black Sail Princess, the reactor's glow gradually dimming. Several engineering vessels slid out from the belly deck of the Black Sail Princess, rushing towards her. Yelena pressed her lips together and sighed. There was no time left. Buzz. In the next moment, centered around the Black Sail Princess, the space within a radius of hundreds of kilometers suddenly distorted and boiled, with countless blinding silver-white warp flashes piercing through the darkness, crossing space. 1 ship, 2 ships, 3 ships, a total of 35 silver-white, cold steel starships appeared on the battlefield in the most perfect formation. Their lines were stark and grand, and the hull armor was as smooth as a mirror, reflecting the distant starlight. Until the last flash appeared, the Imperial battleship descended thousands of meters above the Black Sail's Princess. Its massive hull, over 800 meters long, loomed like a towering mountain, bringing an overwhelming sense of pressure. The bow of the ship was painted with the emblem of the single-eyed eagle of the Zhuangbai family, firmly grasping the planet beneath its claws. The frail and small body of the Black Sail's Princess looked like a joke in comparison. Yelena gasped, seemingly hearing the triumphant battle song of the Zhuangbai family. Chapter 69. The dull green leaf. The news of the arrest of the Black Sail's Princess and Yelena by the Zhuangbai Navy erupted instantly in every corner of this lawless area of Blackwater Bay. No other news could compare to its shock. In countless taverns, the buzz was palpable. Big news. The Black Sail's Princess Yelena has been captured by the Navy. The Black Sails has suffered heavy losses. Not necessarily. The warden took the main forces and fled, and the Black Sails still has 6 captains with unfathomable strength. The Red Devil has suffered even greater losses. Lady Suroff nearly died at Yelena's hands. Hiss. What kind of interest could make both sides play so big? The losses are not small. Haha. They must have discovered the treasure of the first-generation nobles. And the treasure is located right in Blackwater Bay. A drunken man raised his glass and drank it all in one go, his fingers trembling as he chose lottery numbers, feeling as if the numbers were wriggling like worms, continuously moving until they suddenly lunged at him. Bang! The drunkard fell to the ground, snoring loudly. Youth is wonderful. He fell asleep right away. The Zhuangbai Navy does not move easily, but when they do, they 1T return lightly. In these days, whether it was the Black Sails or the Red Devil, both faced pursuit from the Navy. Of course, the Night Orchid also was no exception, but after Lu Ling's modifications, the Zhuangbai fleet couldn't even catch a glimpse of the Night Orchid. Night Orchid, medical station. Feng Ling looked at Lu Ling, who had fallen into a deep sleep, pondering with narrow phoenix eyes. This was a special care unit, equipped with only a single medical bed. The last time Lu Ling lay here was half a year ago, back when he was naive and surprisingly polite. Now looking again, his relaxed brows had gained a hint of sharpness, and the distinct contours of his face bore traces of hardship. He lay there in deep sleep, serene as when they first met. The cabin door slid open silently, and Lian quickly walked in. Seeing Feng Ling lost in thought, she did not interrupt. Is everything cleaned up? After a while, Feng Ling concluded her contemplation, her voice soft yet clear. Lian nodded. Captured 9 Navy spies, all eliminated. If Lu Ling were awake at this moment and heard Lian's flat tone, he would surely take a step back silently. My sister Lian is ruthless and speaks little. There are always more spies to catch. Feng Ling shook her head, issuing a decisive order. Recently, you will personally supervise the ship's affairs, prohibiting any promotions, especially in the bridge and engine room. These crew members will be closely monitored, and vacant positions will be filled by those of the same rank. Understood. There is not much time left. temporarily restore Greenleaf's position and have her come to work. Lian looked at Lu Ling, who was lying in the medical chamber in a state of suspended animation. Over the past few days, several medical team leaders under Greenleaf had come to check on him. But even after the infusion of carbon matrix, he showed no signs of waking up. It was unknown what medication he had taken initially, as its effects were surprisingly potent. When Greenleaf entered the intensive care unit, her steps carried a barely perceptible heaviness. She was still wearing her signature, well-tailored chief medical officer uniform, and her ash-gray hair was neatly tied back, exposing her pale and delicate neck. However, unlike before, her wrists and ankles were now shackled with magnetic cuffs. Once activated, these cuffs would snap together instantly, and without several tons of explosive force. It was impossible to break free. In their unactivated state, they resembled ordinary accessories, being lightweight and compact. However, if activated while the wearer was in the wrong position, the sudden constriction could lead to fractures or even strangulation. Therefore, under normal circumstances, prisoners did not dare to move excessively. For Greenleaf, the shackles felt as heavy as a mountain. Feng Ling leaned against the cold equipment with her arms crossed, her phoenix eyes slowly turning towards Greenleaf, their orange-hued pupils revealing only deep indifference. "You are the only one who betrayed me and is still alive." Greenleaf took a deep breath. Feng Ling's words pierced her chest with a slight pain. She lowered her eyelids, her gaze falling on the cold shackles on her wrists, and sighed softly. "I was foolish." Her voice was quiet, tinged with a resigned weariness, yet deep within that fatigue lay an indelible sense of stubbornness. Feng Ling's brow furrowed slightly, disappointment flickering in her eyes. She turned towards the hatch, her tone icy. "Cure him as soon as possible. I still have great use for him." Greenleaf did not look up, merely responding quietly. "Yes." As the hatch slid open, Feng Ling suddenly paused, turning her head as if she wanted to say something, but in the end, she only pressed her beautifully shaped lips together, suppressing her complex emotions. "Take care of yourself." The hatch closed. Greenleaf lifted her head, and in her ash-gray eyes, a restrained sorrow surfaced, ultimately transforming into silence. Betrayal was commonplace among pirates. The world was inherently one of the survival of the fittest. The weak, in order to protect themselves, often became pawns of the strong, a tacit rule of survival. But was her relationship with Feng Ling that of pirates? A superior-subordinate relationship? Wasn't that also a form of piracy? "I'm sorry." Greenleaf closed her eyes, knowing deep down that it was no longer the case. This path was one she had chosen herself. No, perhaps it was Rachel who had made that choice for her from the very beginning. Greenleaf walked to the side of the medical chamber, looking at the man peacefully asleep inside and suddenly recalling the day she took him to the consortium's headquarters. Witnessing that dramatic performance, it was also the day she had incited him to kill for the first time. People change gradually. There was no turning back. But I have my reasons for doing this. The days of hiding were not easy. The Dongduo Xinxiang, thanks to Lu Ling's modified jump engine, maneuvered freely amidst the encirclement and pursuit of the Zhuangbai Navy. The Black Sail pirates and the Crimson Devil had returned to their lairs, silent and holding their breath, not daring to act recklessly. But amidst the calm yet turbulent galaxy, the Chiyo was not so fortunate. Without a supply base, the ship was like a startled bird, desperately fleeing through the asteroid belt and the desolate void. Each jump carried the risk of being caught. If they didn't change their position, it was merely waiting for death. Some of the Navy from Zhuangbai returned to their home port satisfied after the harvest, but a small number of lower-ranking officers remained relentless. They had to seize this opportunity. It was a chance for merit. "Captain, the situation on the Chia is dire." On the bridge of the Yangtze, Mulin's holographic projection reported the recent battle conditions. Her voice weary. "We are running low on jump fuel and ammunition. Some armor and weapons urgently need repairs, and I sense there are many moles on board. Our movements are always anticipated by Zhuangbai's agents." Feng Ling sat in the captain's seat, deep in thought. "How many navigation beacons do we have left?" "Just one. The others have either been reclaimed by the Zhuangbai Navy or are bait." The jump beacon, officially known as the navigation jump beacon, is a temporary or semi-permanent spatial coordinate positioning and navigation device that emits a unique, highly encrypted space-time reference signal to provide interstellar ships with precise jump paths for point-to-point hyperspace travel. Its positioning accuracy is extremely high, with an error usually not exceeding 1 kilometer. For ships that can easily be hundreds or thousands of meters long, this precision is crucial to avoid catastrophic jumps into planetary interiors, on the surfaces of stars, or near other hazardous celestial bodies. Each beacon has a unique identification code, and if leaked, any ship could jump to that coordinate. The beacon acts like navigation. The route is already established, ensuring safe and convenient travel. But what about the unmapped voids of space without beacons? There is an ancient method called directional jumping. Directional jumping is straightforward. It allows for jumps in any direction and at any angle for any distance, usually measured in light years. resulting in blind hyperspace travel. This is truly a journey, because if the landing point is within or near a star, planet, neutron star, black hole, or other lethal cosmic phenomena, congratulations. You won't even have a chance to escape. It's game over. 60,000 years ago, during the galactic age of exploration, also known as the Great Expansion Era, pioneers explored the unknown depths of space through countless directional jumps, ultimately conquering the galaxy. The paths taken by directional jumps were then charted into star maps, and navigation beacons were deployed to create routes. The Chia has one hidden beacon left, meaning it can only hide once more, though it might also be a trap. Suddenly, Fengling thought of something. Is Renki on your ship? Yes, he is currently the captain of the first assault team. Mulan didn't understand. But she knew that when Fengling asked that question, she already had a meticulous plan. Use this beacon. I'll wait for you at the destination. After Fengling finished speaking, she ended the communication directly. She turned to Lian. Has Lu Ling woken up? No. According to LVY, she might wake up in the next couple of days. It's too late. Fengling's tone slowed, a hint of complexity flickering in her eyes, quickly replaced by determination as she summoned the control panel for authorization. Navigation coordinates C54. Y709. Beacon activation SY0506. Understood. The jump engine is being prepared. Chapter 70. The sound of the wind blowing away convergence point. The edge of a desolate asteroid belt. Star skeletons, shattered like withered bones, float eternally in the silent void. The night orchid quietly lurks in the shadow of a massive asteroid, merging with the darkness. A streak of light approaches from afar, space rippling as a battered warship, black and red in color, jumps out of the transition and glides to the edge of the asteroid belt. On the side of the hull, armor has fallen off, revealing the internal supporting framework. It is the Crimson Tooth. This location is absolutely safe for 1,020 minutes. The Night Orchid's silent engines ignite, and the two ships begin to converge. On the deck of the Crimson Tooth, receiving the leader's command, all personnel and high-value supplies must transfer to the Night Orchid within 10 minutes. Repeat, all personnel abandon ship. After conveying the order, Mulan took one last look at the empty captain's seat and left without looking back. The interior of the Crimson Tooth quickly became chaotic, but within that chaos was a trace of despair and urgency. Everyone knew that the Crimson Pirates had lost their support and backing. Yet they felt powerless and dared not voice any dissent. Fengling's control was too deep. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Prioritize moving the energy core and weaponry reserves. Injured personnel. Prioritize transporting the severely injured. Move quickly. Don't worry about the damage. Go, go. On the bridge of the Night Orchid, Fengling stood before the observation window, her figure appearing particularly solitary and cold under the starlight. She silently watched the busy Crimson Pirates on the side, her beautiful face devoid of any expression, only her deep phoenix eyes reflecting the faint light from distant stars. Lian approached, her eyes showing complex emotions, losing the usual sharpness and edge. Her voice softened a bit. The leader has arranged everything. Below, several small boats slid out from the Crimson Tooth, heading toward the open deck hangar of the Night Orchid. They contained Mulan and her core team, along with important resources. Against the vast backdrop of space, the speed of these small boats appeared slow and fragile. They needed to shuttle back and forth within this precious 10 minutes, racing against time. Soon, 7 fast channels emerged, with mechanics completing a hard connection between the two ships using tow cables, forming a relatively stable transport pipeline for personnel and supplies. On the Crimson Tooth side, the remaining Crimson Pirates lined up in a somewhat disorganized manner, carrying supplies and assisting the injured, silently and swiftly flowing into the passage. Behind the observation window of the hangar deck, Link was smoking, with several close aides behind him. They, too, were silent, sharp, and alert, scanning everything around them. Loyal hyenas always wait for the leader's command. Link stood nearly 2 meters tall, so robust that he resembled a heavy war mech draped in human form rather than a human being. The grayish-white short hair stood upright like steel needles. On his left cheek, 3 jagged parallel scars ripped from the cheekbone down to the jaw, giving him an exceptionally fierce appearance even without any expression. The most striking feature was his right arm, a military-grade hydraulic prosthetic entirely made of metal, occasionally contracting slightly with a barely audible low hum of metal engaging. Thus, he was also known for his iron fist. Boss, that woman Mulan has escaped, a stern-faced man reported in a low voice as he approached from outside. Re-Ink exhaled a puff of gray smoke slowly, crushing the cigarette butt and carelessly tossing it to the ground. What about orders? He asked. There are no orders. The man replied. Expressionless, Re-Ink left, activating his nano-armor. The dark nanoparticles quickly enveloped his body, forming a dense and hard metallic armor, the overwhelming pressure almost materializing. His loyal followers, the hyenas, followed closely behind. Along the way, the low-ranking pirates instinctively held their breath and quickened their pace, not daring to look too long. If one were to name the most low-key member of the group, it would undoubtedly be Riink. He had been with them for 10 years, never participating in the internal power struggles or forming cliques. He was like a silent reef, obeying only the orders of Feng Ling, becoming her most obedient and fearless wolf. Over the past decade, his hands had been stained with countless blood and had chewed through numerous tough bones. While others fought for power and profit, he did not. While others snatched up spoils, he did not. Even when falsely accused and wronged, he never defended himself, silently enduring, and then used his next brilliant achievement to silence all rumors. It seemed he was born only for battle and obedience. This indestructible mechanical right arm was the best reward personally chosen by Feng Ling for him. It was during an extremely brutal escort mission that his original arm was completely shattered while blocking a deadly armor-piercing grenade for Feng Ling. At that time, she had not yet gained significant power, merely a captain of a pirate assault team, unable to afford the exorbitantly luxurious carbon-based material. Or perhaps she thought it wasn't worth it. Yet even so, Riink did not disappoint her. He transformed this reward into a nightmare for many enemies. But at this moment, 10 years of lurking had finally come to an end. On the Night Orchid, in the medical station, the long corridor was wider than other areas, about 5 meters across. Both sides were brightly lit with a cold white metallic tone, housing a total of 40 patient rooms. Wounded individuals were continuously transported in from the connecting passage. Their painful moans intertwined with the ticking of medical instruments and the short commands of medical staff. In this chaotic center, the intensive care unit remained relatively quiet. LVY stood beside Lu Ling's medical pod, her grayish-blue hair tucked behind her ear, revealing a pale and focused profile as she changed the cell repair fluid. Lu Ling lay inside the medical pod, still in a deep coma, his face pale, but his breathing seemed somewhat steadier than before. The carbon-based material was slowly taking effect, repairing his overexerted body. "Little man, you sure have a lot of secrets," she thought. The green leaf murmured about finishing the dressing change. Beside her, a series of red and yellow pop-up alerts flashed on the analyzer. The X-ability pill produced by the Tianxi group far exceeded any enhancement drug developed by the Empire. Even a high-level biological genetics expert like the green leaf couldn't decipher its detailed composition. Therefore, she couldn't target the medication, but thankfully, her life was not in danger. The green leaf had never seen such a powerful yet safe drug. It was simply outrageous. As the cabin door opened, Lian's figure appeared at the entrance of the ward. She didn't come in immediately, but stood at the door for a moment. Her gaze swept over Lu Ling before finally landing on the shackles on the green leaf's wrist and her calm profile, her expression complicated. "How is the situation?" Lian's voice broke the silence in the ward, softer than usual, but still carrying a hint of subtle scrutiny. "The carbon matrix is functioning. Vital signs are stabilizing. She should wake up soon," the green leaf replied calmly. "Did she send you?" Lian remained silent. The she in the green leaf's words naturally referred to Feng Ling. But this time, the green leaf was mistaken. It was Lian who had come on her own initiative. Lian approached and looked at the vital sign data displayed in the medical pod. "Can you determine when she will wake up?" "No, she could wake up at any moment." The green leaf answered vaguely, then changed the subject. "Was the transfer smooth?" Lian's gaze shifted from Lu Ling's face back to the green leaf, her expression instantly regaining its usual coldness, her tone becoming more distant. "The leader hasn't declared your freedom yet. No comment." The green leaf responded softly and didn't ask further. She turned to tidy up the nearby medical equipment, producing faint metallic clinks. Her slender back straightened, her posture professional, as if nothing had just happened. "Take care of yourself." Lian left. The green leaf paused in her actions, her eyes downcast, long eyelashes casting a faint shadow on her pale cheeks. She had few friends, and Lian had once been one of them. But now, she had none. No one came to ask her why she betrayed Feng Ling and the Red Army. A heavy silence spread in the ward, as if the noise outside the cabin had abruptly ceased at that moment. An indescribable chill quietly crept up. Suddenly, the green leaf turned to look at the cabin door, her gaze sharp, one hand instinctively reaching for the hidden pulse pistol at her waist. Buzz. The cabin door opened. Outside, a guard from the Red Army lay on the ground, convulsing violently, eyes filled with terror, hands desperately clutching his blood-soaked neck, making a chilling rasping sound from his throat. Blood splattered, staining the cold corridor. A large figure slowly emerged, bringing with it a heavy sense of oppression like a mountain, metal boots crunching on the pool of blood. The green leaf withdrew her hand, her azure pupils flashing with an ambiguous light. "I didn't expect it to be you." Riink didn't respond. His mask slid away, revealing a face marred by intersecting scars, looking extremely fierce. 3 parallel scars appeared particularly menacing under the cold white light, his gaze sharp as an eagle-ass. "An order." Riink's voice was steady. It was not a question, but a confirmation of action permission. No orders, the Greenleaf said. These 4 words were like a key that unlocked something, echoing in the bloody air. Ryan's sharp gaze lingered on Greenleaf's face for a moment, as if assessing and confirming. You are my superior? He felt it was somewhat absurd. After 10 years of undercover work, he had no idea that his superior was the chief medical officer who was extremely close to Feng Ling. He had known from the beginning that there was a mole beside Feng Ling, but he had never suspected it would be Greenleaf. Ryan's gaze shifted to the shackles on Greenleaf's wrist, and his expression gradually became chilling. Feng Ling didn't kill you. He suspected Greenleaf had betrayed them. Why do you want to kill me? Greenleaf tapped the medical pod beside her, successfully drawing Ryan's attention. He is the item the boss wants. That's right, let's hurry. Greenleaf stood up. The locking mechanism of the medical bed made a faint clicking sound as it was released and floated in the air. Her gaze fell on Lu Ling's pale face, lingered for a moment, then moved away as if merely confirming the status of the equipment. She pushed the medical bed out, glancing at the fallen corpses along the way, a flicker of disgust crossing her eyes. As a doctor, she had an instinctive respect for innocent lives, especially when they were her own people. Some had paid a heavy price for the Red Army and barely returned alive, only to tragically die here now. What a bitter irony. The people outside did nothing wrong. Why must they be killed? Ryan followed behind her, his heavy combat boots sinking into the blood-soaked ground, making a sticky sound. He looked down at Greenleaf's slender back from above, his expression unwavering. Feng Ling sent them here, just for me to kill. The presence of the guards was an obstacle, a variable that needed to be eliminated in the plan. Feng Ling understood this better than anyone. Ryan knew that woman. He was just fulfilling his duty one last time. Greenleaf did not speak again. Ryan's trusted subordinates, like hyenas, were sharp-nosed and agile, clearing the way ahead. Along the way, few noticed anything unusual, and they smoothly arrived at the Red Fawn. Meanwhile, this grand transfer was coming to an end. The fast passage in the middle was severed and discarded. The void rippled, and the Night Orchid's jump engine blazed brightly, turning into a streak of light, disappearing from sight. Greenleaf stood silently behind the porthole. Chapter 71. Loneliness of All Beings. Master Lien. Something bad has happened. The medical station has been attacked. Master Lu Ling and Master Greenleaf are both missing. On the Night Orchid, at the medical station, the corridor was in disarray. With hundreds of Red Army guards and pirates lying in pools of blood, the air thick with the smell of blood. Lien stood at the end, a cold light in her eyes. Mulin hurried over, her voice a bit hoarse. It's Ryan. He has betrayed us. He has kidnapped Chief Greenleaf and Chief Lu Ling. In the surveillance footage, a burly black figure moved through the medical station as if it were unguarded. And in just a few breaths, the entire place turned into hell on earth. The metal corridor was covered in bloodstains, bullet holes, and openings. There was not a single sign of anything unusual. So strange. Too strange. Mulin watched Lien's hurried departure, her throat tightening as she realized that things were far from simple. The bridge door opened. Lien, with a complex expression, hesitated before stepping forward, her voice somewhat strained. Re-Ink has taken the people away. As you anticipated. He has cleared all the personnel you arranged. For some reason, she felt a discomfort in her throat. Feng Ling did not turn around or respond, simply gazing out at the ripples of the jump outside the viewport. Chief. Lien couldn't help but step forward, lowering her voice even more. Not noticing the hint of questioning in her tone. Chief Lu Ling had done nothing wrong. Over the past 6 months, he had worked diligently and cooperatively, putting in his utmost effort whether it was for base maintenance or the modification of the Night Orchid. Lien's voice caught in her throat. The thought that he had saved her life, saved the lives of everyone on the Red Blade, rolled around but was ultimately swallowed down. The depth of her admiration for Feng Ling was matched only by the chilling realization in her heart. Lu Ling, the federal citizen salvaged from deep space, sincere and straightforward, though with some minor flaws, was undoubtedly a rare opportunity for them, the Red Soldiers. A once-in-a-lifetime chance. It was he who revitalized the battered Night Orchid, turning it into the fastest ship in the Silver Shield Star region, unmatched. Such accomplishments, such loyalty, only to end up as a disposable pawn? Feng Ling's narrow eyes turned toward her, the orange-hued irises devoid of warmth or waves, only a cold, scrutinizing indifference. Are you questioning whether I should have given him to Rachel? Lien shuddered, instinctively dropping to one knee, but her eyes still held defiance. But I believe this is a wrong decision. Chief Lu Ling should not be involved. If it weren't for your deliberate leak of information back then, Rachel wouldn't have set her sights on Lu Ling. But without that bait, how could Rachel, that venomous snake, be easily lured? This thought tore through her mind. Feng Ling coldly turned her head to gaze into the profound starry sky ahead. There is no right or wrong in this world. Beneath this starry sky, there is only one jump engine of the Earth Federation, and it is already in our hands. These words pierced through Lien's last shred of hope like a dagger tempered in ice. Only one engine? So, in the eyes of the chief, Lu Ling, along with his talent, loyalty, dedication, and the countless lives he saved was worth less than this jump engine? But Lien opened her mouth, only to find her throat blocked, unable to produce any sound. Looking at Fengling's extremely indifferent profile, an indescribable sadness surged within her, welling up in her eyes. She knew she had no right to say anything. She was Fengling's adjutant, an executor of orders, a part of this cold plan, and she was complicit, only in the final moments. Witnessing Lu Ling being discarded as a pawn and feeling that bone-chilling coldness, did she begin this belated, futile repentance? If only, back at the medical station, she could have woken Lu Ling and taken him away. But there were no ifs. Outside the porthole, the ripples in space are dissipating. The cosmic darkness is profound, and the starry sky is desolate. The light of waves bursts forth, and the bridge trembles slightly as the ship, Night Orchid, exits the transition corridor and begins to glide. Report. Arrived at designated coordinates. Lien suddenly looks up, her pupils constricting sharply. Before her, a massive, dazzling star rises like dawn, illuminating the entire bridge. The brilliance is searing, nearly burning through her retina. Yet beneath this almost blinding glow, an even more shocking sight leaves her mind momentarily blank. Dozens of iron warships are gathering and forming a lineup, more than she has ever seen. They hover in the void, their hulls half bathed in the blinding sunlight, reflecting a cold metallic sheen, while the other half is cast in shadow, devoid of any light. It's the Black Sail and the Blood Alliance. When did this happen? Lien's mind goes blank, almost ceasing to think, only her heart pounding wildly in her chest. Such a formidable force is gathering right under the eyes of the naval forces. Fengling hasn't mentioned any related plans to her. In this suffocating silence, two distinctly different holographic communication beams arrive. The left beam coalesces, revealing the familiar figure of Rosanira. She is still wearing that well-tailored dark dress, her emerald green eyes carrying a hint of languor and charm. The right beam outlines a completely different figure, an elderly man with hair and beard as white as snow. His stature is remarkably robust. Even in holographic projection, one can feel the immense strength contained within his frame. Time has etched deep lines on his face, but his eyes are sharp as an eagle, clear and dignified. Lord Fengling, Rosanira greets respectfully. However, Fengling looks at her with profound meaning. I didn't expect that you are indeed the figure behind the Blood Alliance as rumored. Hee. I'm just fortunate to be favored by my brothers, temporarily running errands and passing messages. Rosanira replies humbly, but beneath her words lies an undeniable sense of control. At this moment, with the fleet in her grasp, she is no longer the information broker flitting between various forces or a pirate intermediary. The weight of her words commands careful consideration from everyone present. As Rosanira's humble words fall, the towering elderly man speaks, each word carrying heavy significance. Fengling, your daughter has been arrested by the naval forces. The fact that Yelena has been captured is no secret. It has caused a stir throughout the bay. Your Excellency. Fengling's voice remains cold, neither humble nor arrogant. He is certainly not a true noble of the Empire. He simply enjoys being addressed as such, attempting to restore the glory of his ancestors, and that age is also intentional. I will ensure that Miss Yelena will be released within 7 days, in addition to the promised payment of 80 million star coins to the Black Sail. This time, even the gaze of the leader flickered slightly. 8 million star coins is an astronomical figure, enough to entice any faction. It also represents the reward for their collective effort this time, the sum of several years' total income. The man with a face full of crevices narrowed his sharp eyes, scrutinizing the leader. The reputation of the leader indeed precedes her. He nodded slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement, even carrying a hint of barely noticeable wariness. The safety of a certain individual is an additional condition for him. As long as she returns safely, what would it matter if his fleet lent assistance? Thank you. The leader raised her hand slightly, her movements calm and unhurried. Please wait a moment. Another guest has yet to arrive. Oh, there is someone else. A genuine surprise flashed in her green eyes, causing her previously lazy demeanor to tighten a bit. The man's sharp eyes narrowed even further, examining her as if trying to see through her calm exterior to discern how many unknown cards she held. Could it be one of those factions? Otherwise, it's hard to understand who else would have the qualifications and the guts to join this deadly game against a prominent figure. Buzzing. Dozens of blinding transition flashes flickered at the edge of the starlight, and sleek, wildly painted starships roared out from the torn spatial passage like interstellar hyenas smelling blood, heading toward the star with an unmasked ferocity. The villain's gang? Both of them spoke with caution. They are known as true thugs in the entire autonomous region for their lawlessness and brutal killings. They act without boundaries, plundering merchant ships, attacking colonies, and even engaging in fierce battles with other pirates as if it were a daily routine, a group that even the most powerful factions would not want to provoke lightly. In the center of the bridge, a suddenly appearing holographic projection materialized between the two, taking shape. A rough-looking man with a scarred face, whose eyes resembled those of a beast ready to pounce, appeared. He grinned, revealing uneven yellow teeth, his voice hoarse. The big bad guy, the leader of the villains gang. Haha. Let us take down that old rascal. No matter what, the villains gang has to come and spice things up. You really are generous. This betrayal was quite the spectacle. Wow, such a grand setup. He boisterously patted his chest with his large hand, making a dull sound, his gaze sweeping over the leader and the man, filled with blatant provocation and wildness. Now that everyone is here, let us get started. The leader's calm gaze scanned the three factions. Everyone. We are here to get the job done. The target has been entrenched for years, with deep roots and wide-reaching influence. To sever this poisonous snake, we need tremendous force. However, without a leader, the strength will scatter. Without a leader, the wolves will easily disband. Today, our goals align, all aimed at eliminating the target. But this battle cannot be fought individually. We must act in unison, executing orders without fail. Her voice suddenly rose, prompting the three to take her seriously. I will be the commander. All fleets, follow my orders. Any disobedience will be dealt with according to military law. There was no inquiry, no discussion. And even Night Orchid went to the meeting alone. The bridge was silent, everyone's heart racing. At this moment, their admiration for Feng Ling reached its peak. Lian held her breath, looking at Feng Ling's indifferent eyes, feeling an overwhelming shock in her heart. Rashanila's smile finally faded, her emerald eyes deeply fixed on Feng Ling, sparkling with complex emotions. Sir Blacksail's sharp gaze pierced through Feng Ling, as if trying to see right through her. He remained silent, a tremendous pressure permeating the air without a word. The wild laughter on the face of the evil great ghost froze. He stared with eyes like bronze bells, seemingly wanting to say something. After a brief, suffocating silence, Sir Blacksail was the first to speak, his voice deep, yet carrying a sense of finality. I, Blacksail, shall be the sword in Commander Feng Ling's hand today. Rashanila let out a gentle breath. Commander Feng Ling's achievements were renowned, and the Blood Alliance was willing to follow her commands. The evil great ghost looked at the Sir, then at Rashanila, and finally his gaze returned to Feng Ling, as if the wildness within him was forcibly suppressed. He bellowed gruffly, all right. Who told me I was the last to arrive, Commander Feng? You say where to strike, and the cannons of the evil gang will fire there. But it's agreed that the good stuff in Rachel's lair will be shared among us. If there really is treasure, it will naturally be divided among the three of us. I, Feng Ling, will wash my hands of this from now on and leave Zhuangjibai. Feng Ling's eyes remained calm, exuding an absolute confidence that commanded the entire situation. The three leaders exchanged glances, silently communicating in an instant. They nodded almost simultaneously, transferring the highest command of the fleet to Feng Ling very well. At that moment, Feng Ling no longer concealed her brilliance, her momentum soaring to an astonishing level. All fleets, obey orders. Enter Level 1 combat readiness. Target coordinates, C59, Y66. Authorized navigation beacon SYG, 756409. Engines at full speed. Weapons loaded. All prepare for jump. The Night Orchid slowly turned, facing the void, its thrusters erupting with a blinding blue flame. Behind it, over 60 warships from the Black Sail, Blood Alliance, and Evil Gang were drawn by this will, beginning to turn in unison, their engines merging into a dazzling aurora that shook the stars. With weapon arrays revealing their dark muzzles, they followed the Night Orchid, hundreds of azure tails trailing in the void, creating long, fiery trajectories. Lian stood behind Feng Ling, feeling the deep hum from the ship's hull due to the engines running at full power, her heart shaken. And she couldn't help but develop a sense of awe for Feng Ling's nearly miraculous control. She lowered her head, offering her deepest submission to the figure that wielded power over destruction and life. Chapter 72. The defeated mountain tiger in the Red Devil's solitary graveyard base. At the top of the refinery, the cold metal walls were embedded with countless precision instruments, liquid conduits of various sizes pulsing and flowing like living things, emitting a low hum. The air was thick with the acrid smell of disinfectants mixed with organic repair fluids, making it hard to breathe. In the center of the room, a medical pod, tilted at an angle, stood like a crystal coffin, inside which lay a broken figure. A pale blue nutrient solution slowly circulated within, with bubbles continuously rising from the bottom and bursting. His appearance was hardly that of a complete person, not a single inch of skin was intact, with extensive burn marks and signs of energy corrosion interwoven all over his body. This was Rachel, who had battled fiercely with Feng Ling and was caught in the shattered star vortex. At this moment, his left eye was tightly closed, while the right side of his head was completely shattered, half of his brain missing, just like his son Kareem, but with a little more loss. The right half of his body had almost entirely disappeared, leaving only broken bones protruding from the flesh. pale bone fragments sinking to the bottom of the pod, and the severed dark red muscle fibers floating in the nutrient solution. He couldn't even be described as obese. When the mamba snake pulled him out, he was almost reduced to a pulp, barely clinging to life. Around the medical pod, dozens of medical personnel in sterile protective suits moved like silent worker ants, busily monitoring hundreds of data streams. On the holographic screen, Rachel's vital signs fluctuated continuously. Preparations for surgery were underway. Above the medical pod, 5 drones the size of fingernails descended into the water. They were extremely precise, their small bodies equipped with dozens of advanced medical devices and billions of nanobots. Neuron connection complete.